And we get it rolling on the Krueger Show. Hope everybody's having a phenomenal weekend. It is June the 4th, 2 days before my youngest child's birthday. He's counting down the days, waiting for a big gift. Welcome to the Krueger Show after NBA Finals game number 2. We are brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera, open 7 days a week in Marin from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. We're also brought to you by Telmetrics.co and the New York Style Italian Sausage Company. And it's time for another home and home. And look who's in the house wearing the hat tonight. The great D. Bruce, who you guys all know. Damon, good to see you, man. How are you?
Good to see you. How old will your son be turning?
Oh, man, you always got to ask the tough questions now. I'm just I think he's going from 13 to 14. So he's going to be the big 1-4. And yeah, it's a big move.
I mean, you're 10 years further down the road. Jack will be going from 3 to 4. Ozzy will be going from 1 to 2 in August. So you're about a decade further down the road there. And that's not even your oldest.
No, that's my youngest. That's my youngest. My oldest is my daughter, who goes to med school in Atlanta. She is born in 2000, so she's going to be 23. She's 22 right now. She's going to be 23. I have a son who is 20. They're like Irish cousins. He's basically 20 months younger than her, and he goes to Cal Poly. And then I've got a kid who just finished his junior year in high school and is off to play summer baseball. He's the one that I really look at, and he's just finished his junior year. Do you remember those days, Damon? I said, I said to my son Ben, I said, "What do you got going this summer?" He's like, "Well, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna do a little job here and there, make a little money. I'm gonna hang out with my friends, and I'm gonna play summer ball." I'm like, you know what? Those were great days, man. Those were great days.
That's the summer we're all looking to become billionaires to have that summer again.
Yeah. I mean, you forget how what summer is like in high school. It's like you got a little summer reading to do. It's a pain in the ass. But besides that, he's hoping to make the varsity baseball team next year. So he'll play summer ball this year. So, I mean, summer ball, these guys play whatever number of games, 35 games. It's a ridiculous number of games. They just play and play and play and play. And, of course, the heat of Walnut Creek and the East Bay is incredible. And there's some tournaments in Chico and San Diego and some other warm places.
Well,
so
look,
it's a lot of baseball.
Happy advanced birthday to the youngest of the Krueger clan. The reason why I still have a hat on is because I went to the yard today. So I've got you wore a hat all day hair, and I couldn't do that to your channel and your loyal audience, Larry. I didn't want to do that to anybody. It looks bad. So I'm sticking with the hat. And I know we'll talk a little bit about a day with a 3-year-old at Oracle a little bit later on. We have some sad Giants news to talk about, the passing of Hum Baby himself. But before all that, man, hell of an NBA Finals game just went down. Everything Miami needed to happen, not only within a game, but within this series, just kind of happened tonight. They were really good from downtown. They got more aggressive going to the rim. They didn't really have a lot of damage done in the paint, but they were just more aggressive. Duncan Robinson had himself a really big fourth quarter. So somebody came, to help off the bench. Strus, who was terrible in game 1, was on fire, game 2, Max Strus. Is that now a thing? I don't know. But it was exactly what Miami needed, and it's certainly what this series needed. If there is going to be any X marks the spot to this series, I got Nuggets in 5. I think you're pretty much of a like mindset. If Miami's going to do something, what's the old no series starts until a team wins on the other team's floor. Well, the NBA Finals started tonight because Miami wins in Denver for the first time since 2016. They don't play there very often. That's usually a giveaway game too in the regular season, but that's a big win for the Heat tonight.
Well, no, they limited Jokic as a passer. He had 41, he had 11 rebounds, but only 4 assists.
Yeah.
And was minus 11 on the floor. I hate conspiracy theories and this and that, but it's the game one, Denver went to the line a ton, and Miami went to the line like not at all.
Well, they went 2 times, which is the lowest free throws attempted in the history of playoff basketball. So there you go.
Yeah, and tonight it was much more even. I mean, Miami shot 20 free throws, made 18. Denver shot 22 free throws, made 19. And it just felt like like Miami got a lot of calls in the fourth quarter. I mean, it just seemed like every single time there was anything that was even close, it went against Denver. But I'll say this. I mean, interesting game. Miami comes out, really looked good in the first quarter. It was 26-23 at the end of one. Then Denver just puts it on them in the second quarter, won that second quarter by 9, 34-25. And then Denver came out and won the third quarter, and it looked like Denver was going to go up 2-0, and then Miami outscores them by 11 in the fourth, 36-25. I thought in the first half, and I didn't analyze it to death, but I was watching it. As I was cooking tonight. I made some homemade garlic fries. And then I also went with the New York style Italian sausage brats. I want the brats.
I like that.
And I went with the brats.
What's the secret on the garlic fries?
The secret on the garlic fries is I think you got to go liberally on the garlic. And you got to cook them at somewhat high heat. And then also, I think I like to go with a lot of really finely diced up parsley.
Yes.
So you got garlic, you got garlic. I don't go garlic powder. I just go straight garlic. And then I cut up the potatoes. I do real potatoes, obviously, and I cut them up. I don't make them. I make them like shoestring, real small. And then I just sprinkle the garlic, obviously some oil. I don't go olive oil.
So you don't go next level with the homemade fries where you're like cutting them up a day in advance and leaving them in an ice bath overnight. You're not that fussy.
No. Okay. And I'm not saying that my way is the greatest way either, but I do like the parsley. It freshens them up. Parsley's kind of I don't know even how to describe what parsley is in the whole cooking the cooking world, but it's not it's kind of essential, and it definitely kind of keeps them kind of fresh, and then I make sure that I cook them on high heat, and then the ones on top cook faster. Then I'll take those off and let the other ones underneath cook.
Rotate. There you go.
Kind of rotate them through. So
parsley, if I may be so bold, Larry.
Yes, please do.
Parsley is freshness. That's what it represents. It just a parsley makes the dish like brighter. I don't know what it is. It's the secret to like my vodka sauce, which I do. It's the straight up Connecticut Mafia vodka sauce, which is unbelievable. If you don't have fresh parsley, it's not half as good when you do. A little fresh parsley goes a long way. I agree with you thoroughly. So
it's kind of underrated. It's a little bit of an underrated.
You can talk about garnish for weeks to not get the parsley, but look at the job it does.
This is the second recipe this weekend that I've used parsley. And yesterday I made my stuffed mushrooms, and they are amazing. Amazing. So here's the stuffed mushrooms. You take New York style mild sausage.
Yes.
Dice it up, right? Dice it up real fine. Then you go to the store and you get the biggest damn mushrooms you can find. Little tiny mushrooms ain't gonna work. You got to have those big. I don't know if you need portobellos. You just need a big mushroom because you got to be able to stuff a lot of stuff in it. So then I take the ground sausage, I brown it, then I add some mascarpone cheese, which is kind of almost like a cream cheese.
Mascarpone, but yes,
mascarpone. Okay, mascarpone cheese, breadcrumbs, diced up scallions, diced up parsley, and what else is in there?
Are you the cook in the house? I mean,
no, my wife does most of the cooking, but I like to cook on the weekends. Like when I do a
lot of cooking to the point where I might be the cook in the house only because I love doing it. Like I've always said, if I hit the Powerball, not only would I continue to broadcast in some way, shape, or form because I just love doing it, but then I would open up a place called Just Brunch, and I would be open from, I mean, it would be a money loser, but I've always wanted to do like breakfast cook griddle stuff, like a big griddle, eggs, flapjacks. I'm Mr. Breakfast when it comes to like, what do you like cooking the most? And I would love losing my shirt. I'd be open from about, I don't know, 10:30 in the morning to like 11:15. You know, I mean, I wouldn't want to be open very long, but I'd want to go in there, serve a little coffee, little eggs, little hash browns, just kind of do it and then get out and lose my shirt doing it. But it didn't matter because I hit the Powerball and I got to make a little brunch.
To me, it's relaxing.
Yes.
I like cooking. Yeah. I like cooking. It's always relaxing. Now, if you were making a restaurant and this and that, and then, you know, you do it wrong or whatever, but, you know, people are mad and, you know, I didn't like this and this is overdone. This is underdone. All that could be a huge headache dealing with the public.
But I do, it would be one of those restaurants where I wouldn't care about the reviews. I'm not there to even make money with it. Like, I'm doing it for myself at this point. So
what is your primo dish? Like, what is like, if I said to your wife, Jillian, what does Damon cook extremely well that like she'll occasionally say, honey, why don't you bust out your...
I do her favorite whenever I'm on the grill, I do a marinated skirt steak. Ooh. That is unbelievable. And the vodka sauce, dude, you can bring over the most Italian family, like they don't even like non-English speaking level Italian family to my house, and I'll put the vodka sauce in front of them. And I'll just get them nod of approval from every Italian at the table. It's that strong. It really is. So,
one of my favorite things to do is my mom gave me a recipe for crab cakes, but they're, you know, not crab cakes like you get in a restaurant that it's like a crab muffin that tastes kind of like, this is actually real crab that you deep fry into in a patty. And then you lay it over a bed of diced tomatoes, avocados with a balsamic vinaigrette.
Hey, now look at you.
Damn.
With a balsamic vinaigrette reduction. Oh my God.
Look at that.
Look at us. Look at how far we've come.
It's rich. It's rich. My wife will be like, hey, it's New Year's Eve. Why don't you, throw your crab cake recipe
on Sundays? So when I was in a fraternity, I used to get my weed from the guy who ran the kitchen.
Right.
So he would give me a key to the kitchen, and on Sunday mornings, I would cook breakfast for the entire fraternity house. Like I was a Sunday morning short order cook, and everyone knew if you want eggs from Damon, you better, he's gonna be going back upstairs to start watching football about noonish, because it's 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock was back then or whatever it was. So, but yeah, I used to love cooking big breakfasts, and look at us, a couple of chefs.
We're versatile. We're mobile. We're hostile. We're infantile, and we're versatile. Brian Lester says the Heat's supporting cast is the best in the NBA, hands down. Let's get back to the finals for a second. I mean, what do you think as far as these two teams? In some ways, the NBA, like all sports, is a copycat league, and the Heat have an awful lot of shooting. Duncan Robinson, shooter. Strus is considered a shooter. Vincent's a shooter. Kevin Love, perimeter shooter. They've got a bunch of guys who shoot the ball, and from the perimeter, and it's like and they've got a bunch of undrafted guys. They got a bunch of guys that nobody thought were any good. Nobody wanted Strus or Vincent or any Duncan Robinson or Highsmith or Cody Martin, even for that matter. And yet they've put together a team that's basically full of guys who can shoot the ball if you leave them alone.
They've certainly shot the ball well in the postseason, which is why they are where they are. But in the regular season, this team full of shooters was nowhere to be found. I mean, they had a really rough shooting the ball regular season. So I don't know if I'm gonna meet you out on the team full of great shooters deck, because I don't think that's where Miami lives. What Miami has, and it's cliche to just say culture. When you say culture, it's another way of saying coaching. And they have Eric Spoelstra. And Eric Spoelstra knows exactly what he's doing. And they have a real lion in Jimmy Butler, who I think is one of those equivalents of having an on-court coach. Like Jimmy is a guy who is worn out his welcome. I mean, look at the loser teams that said we don't like the way Jimmy talks to either the coach or the guys on this team or the established stars. Like Jimmy Butler took a look at Karl Anthony Towns and basically within 5 minutes was like, "You're a pussy and I'm going to own you." And that's why he was out of Minnesota. That's why he was out of Chicago. That's why he was out of Philadelphia. Jimmy Butler is a winner of the first degree. And if he rubs people the wrong way on his way to winning, that shouldn't bother anyone because this is a bottom line business. And you hear Jimmy Butler, he was asked about, well, what do you think of the role players on your team? And Larry, what an answer he had. He said, well, I don't consider them role players. I consider them teammates. And just stupid little things like that so set a tone in a locker room. And you've been in enough locker rooms to know that everyone in there has got a massive ego, whether they have been, a lottery pick or undrafted. They are professionals in the hardest league in the world to have a gig in. And they all have massive egos and they're well earned. They really are. And for a guy who just knows how to sometimes motivate his teammates the right way, do it with encouragement, maybe do it with a little belittlement. It really helps Eric Spoelstra just continue a level of year in, year out, my team plays hard style of basketball that is Miami's calling card. I mean, when you think about it, the teams that had the greatest last 20 years, it's clearly the Golden State Warriors. Behind the Golden State Warriors, it's probably the Miami Heat. Maybe Boston is in the conversation. There's, a few other teams that have not won the NBA championship would find themselves in the conversation. Because I think, like the Oklahoma City Thunder, they've handled themselves well, obviously in the Durant era and in the post-Durant era. There's something cooking, with that team and that culture that I've got an awful lot of respect for, even though it doesn't show up in the win column all the time. But tonight, I mean, dude, it's a make or miss league. I mean, it always has been, always will be. And tonight, instead of missing all of his shots, Max Strus hit some. Gabe Vincent hit some. I think they took a combined 1 for 17 in game one. Right. Tonight, they were a combined, 12 for 22, if I can just do my math on the fly. So,
I mean, Miami really shot it well. 49% from the field, 49% from three, 90% from the foul line. And on a night where they got out-rebounded, they were -7 on the glass, -6 on the defensive glass. But they were -13 on fast break points. Denver really ran them in the first half. Miami was also -12 points in the paint, and they still find a way to win the game. Just an impressive win for Miami for sure. If I said to you, I'm giving you an NBA franchise, you can have any GM and any coach. Who are you taking as your GM? Who are you taking as your coach?
Is it an existing, like I can pair them together?
Well, let's not go with Red Auerbach or anything,
No, but I mean, like, do I have to have it currently existing?
Not a team. Okay. You could go, like, for me, I'm going Sam Presti, Eric Spoelstra.
So I was just about to say the exact same thing.
Sam Presti.
So I would go Presti for sure as a GM. And when it comes to coaching, you could do no better than Eric Spoelstra, or you could go Steve Kerr. I mean, you wouldn't be wrong going with Steve Kerr. I really believe that, because at some point in time, it becomes about managing all of those well-earned egos. And I think that is maybe the greatest trait that Steve Kerr has over maybe every coach in this league.
But it's a very young league, and has Kerr's proven a lot, but has he proven that he can bring a group of young players along? I don't know.
That's fair. That's a fair criticism. But yeah, I mean, I would definitely go with Presti. And then you could look at it this way. You couldn't do much better than Eric Spoelstra. That's for sure. You could not do it. I thought Nick Nurse did a hell of a job up in Toronto. Let's see what he does as he now reemerges. He just got the gig in
Philly.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot to handle, obviously, in Philadelphia. I thought he did an incredible job, though, with Toronto. And apparently he, was the first guy ever to win a G League championship and an NBA championship. So he's had success at a couple of levels, and that means developing young players right there. So I like that. If
you were going all time, maybe I got to go Jerry West, just because West, West has got such an incredible eye for talent. And West is just, Jerry West is Jerry West. I mean, he's done an incredible job. Coaching wise, that one's tough. Do you go Pat Riley? And then
Pat Riley.
So you go Red Auerbach. You go
Phil
Billy
Jackson.
Cunningham. I mean, who's
Phil
your
Jackson?
Phil? Yeah, I was gonna say Phil. I mean, it's Popovich.
Yeah.
Not bad. I mean, I think Don Nelson is as good a coach as any that's ever graced the NBA sideline. I'm
certainly as an offensive mind. Yes, as a defensive coach, the man was horrifically incompetent. I mean, let's be honest.
Or did he just play to the talent that he had?
Well, whatever. I mean, if you have no talent that plays any defense, and that is the hallmark of the entirety of your career, that's on the philosophies you're preaching. And it was, it was a horror show defensively, all of his teams.
Mark Hope says, "Ooh, Billy Cunningham, great call by Larry." Billy Cunningham was a tremendous coach. 83 Sixers were maybe one of the greatest teams I've ever seen, with Moses and Doctor, and that team was incredible. Mo Cheeks. 83 Sixers were awesome. Chuck, how about Daddy Rich? How about Chuck Daly? Chuck Daly was a damn good coach too.
He was. I think
dream team.
I don't want to say anything negative about, but I think like Chuck Daly, he died way too young. So no one like we didn't get to see so James Dean, his car goes into the lake or the river or wherever, and James Dean is forever leaning against that red car with the brown jacket, and he's just young, cool Hollywood hip forever. We never got to see them lose their fastball. So I think there's a little of that with Chuck Daly. Not that, but anyways, your friend Mark Hope, who was a guy,
great guy.
Yes,
love Mark Hope. Where is he?
Watches over on Damon Bruce Plus. He slips in all the time. He was impressed with the hours of my brunch place. He's like 10:45 to 11:15, very aggressive. But he also, and I got to jog back here in your comment section because I can see it. He says that he got that time. No, 10:30 to 11:15. We're not staying open for an hour and 15 minutes. 45 minutes, get him in, get him out. But Mark said that per John Dickinson, tonight, Bruce Bochy became the 10th all-time winningest manager with 2,041 wins as a major league manager. And not to, do the segue on the Krug channel, but Larry, there is some symmetry to Bruce Bochy, who is clearly the single greatest manager in the history of the San Francisco Giants, becoming the 10th all-time winningest manager in Major League history on the same day where Roger Craig passes away. I mean, if you like some symmetry, there it is. I can't in any way, shape, or form speak with any authority as to Roger Craig as a game day manager, as someone the Roger Craig era was over before I showed up in San Francisco. So
yeah, I met
him as an ambassador. I met him as, manager emeritus. I did get to talk to him. He was always lovely, but tell me about what Hum Baby was like on game day.
Oh my God, Damon. First of all, R.I.P. Hum Baby. Roger Craig was a Dodgers pitcher, and
but 19 Mets too.
Yeah. He was on one of the worst teams of all time. And he has passed away at the age of 93. He managed the Giants from 1985 to 1992. And I will say this, Roger Craig and Al Rosen have more to do with the turning around of the Giants franchise than any other two people. Had bigger impact on the turning around of the franchise than Larry Baer and Peter McGowan, more than Barry Bonds, more than Will Clark, more than any of them. It was Roger Craig and Al Rosen. They took over in 85, in September of 85, and the Giants were on their way to a 100-loss season. And not only that, there was so much in-house complaining about Candlestick, and the Giants were still trying to get a stadium built, and they were years away from getting it built, right? Because it didn't get it built until 2000. This was 1985. This is 15 years, prior to that. And they came in and they just basically said, "Hey, look, we are not going to allow our players to badmouth our stadium. If you don't want to be here, let us know." They sat down with the team at the end of the 95 season or 85 season and just said, "Hey, if you don't want to be here, we'll make other arrangements. We'll get you out of here. And but if you're going to be here, we are going to turn our home stadium into a place that we like to play, and we're going to turn it into a home field advantage." And they absolutely did, just by the will of their personalities. And Al Rosen was as tough as they come, a former third baseman, very respected ball player, and Roger Craig was as positive as it came. I mean, just a very positive guy. But his contribution was far more than just his positive nature. This guy in 86, 87, 88, let's say the first 3 years.
Well, 89 is obviously
89, they won the pennant. But I'm just saying, in the first 2 or 3 years, every single time the guy pitched out with a man at first, the guy was going, and they nabbed him at second. I mean, it was this was one of the great sign-stealing managers in the history of Giants baseball. I mean, he was a baseball sign-stealing savant. He was known for the split-finger fastball, which he had many of his pitchers throw. But the Giants went 586 and 566 in his 7+ seasons at the helm. He had a winning record in each of his first 5 full seasons. He won the division in 97 and again in 87 and again in 89. He won the NL pennant in 89. First time the Giants had done that since 1962.
Can't even remember who they played in that NLCS.
Yes, you kind of forget. It was the Cubbies, one of the great series of all time.
Oh, Mark Grace and Will Clark put on the single greatest position battle in postseason history.
It was an incredible series. I mean, both those guys, you could not get either of them out. I do remember Andre the Hawk Dawson had a nightmarish series. He was a 0 in that series. And then Will Clark beat Mitch Williams for the game winner. But, yeah, Roger Craig also pitched for 12 seasons in the big leagues. Dodgers both in Brooklyn, and then when the Dodgers came west, he was still a Dodger, and then he wound up on the expansion Mets in 62.
He reeked of baseball lifer. He was one of the first real old timers that I saw stay around the game, and whenever I had the pleasure just to interact with him a little bit, I felt like, well, I'm talking to a guy here who has literally seen everything. I mean, there's nothing in this game that could ever surprise that guy. And
incredible manager.
Yeah.
So positive, such a great leader. And they changed the Giants culture. And then,
what do you think he would, what do you think, Larry, he would think of baseball and its modern eccentricities, if you will? What do you think Roger Craig would think of platooning everywhere, almost abolishing the concept of an everyday player? How would he look at what Farhan and Kapler have done? Would he admire it? Would he appreciate the evolution and concede, well, that's how the sport works, there's someone always a step ahead and they're trying to get a step ahead? Or would he look at the whole thing and be mortified that this is now the San Francisco Giants and the way they go about playing baseball?
Well, I mean, pitching has just changed altogether. I mean, guys used to have complete games all the time. Guys went, it goes so far beyond, Farhan and Gabe Kapler, but I don't think he would like it. I mean, I don't think he came from a different era. I mean, his major league debut was 55 with the Dodgers. That was the year they won the World Series, and there was some epic party in Brooklyn after the Dodgers beat the Yankees. In that World Series, they had lost every single time to the Yankees from the 40s to the mid 50s, and 55, and every year was next year until 55. And then the Dodgers won. He had an incredible year in 59, and Dodgers also went to the World Series that year against the Chi Sox. He had a 2.06 ERA that year, was 13th in the MVP voting. But yeah, I mean, he made appearances in the 64 series with the Cardinals and won his third ring. I mean, he was an awesome, incredible, I mean, this guy dated back to a different era, and he was great to talk to about, Giants and Dodgers history, about the franchise, coming west and what it did to the rivalry. But he was just such a positive guy. His whole thing was don't get your dauber down.
Right.
Don't get your dauber down. Don't
hum baby and dauber down. Those are the two things that are always attached to him forever.
The original hum baby was a catcher named Brad Golden, and he was just a kind of a minor league player. And I think Craig referred to him as a hum baby because he was probably kind of a gamer type, and who knows what exactly made Brad Golden a hum baby, but that was Roger's nickname, the hum baby. And he was awesome. He changed, Rosen and Craig changed the whole vibe of Giants baseball from negative to positive. And maybe my favorite year of Giants baseball was his first year as the manager, 86, when they brought in Robbie Thompson, they brought in Will Clark. They changed the culture from losers to winners. They only won 83 games that year, but it was a huge turnaround. They won the division the year after. What I remember most about Roger Craig is the Giants in the late 80s played multiple doubleheaders against Whitey Herzog and the Cardinals. And Whitey Herzog and the Cardinals in the late 80s, if you know your baseball, that's maybe the fastest team that was ever assembled.
Yeah.
You had Willie McGee, Lonnie Smith, Ozzie Smith, Tommy Herr. I mean, they had guys
built to play on turf,
and they constantly were stealing. They were constantly going. And Roger Craig was so great at neutralizing the running game by timely pitch outs and stealing signs. And the Giants wound up in back-to-back years, and I think it might have been 88 and 89, wound up sweeping doubleheaders from the Cardinals by just totally neutralizing their, Whitey's run game, because every time Whitey had one of his guys going, the hum baby would pitch out, and Bob Brenly would throw down to second base, and Uribe would apply the tag, and the Cardinals were trotting back to the dugout. So that was, to me, when I think of Roger Craig, I can't help but think of how uncanny his guesses were, how incredible he was as the dugout wizard who would call the pitch outs, and how him and Whitey had some amazing showdowns, including the 87 playoffs, on which Whitey got over on the Giants. Candy Maldonado, sliding into the outfield, and the ball went over his head. Atlee Hammaker imploded in Game 7. The one mistake Roger Craig made was he went with Atlee Hammaker instead of Mike Krueger on the road against the Cardinals in the playoffs in Game 7. He should have gone with Krueger, who obviously we know now that Krueger was a great playoff performer. He was a great pressure player, and he had already shut down the Cardinals earlier in that series. And he went with Atlee Hammaker, and Hammaker had good stuff, was a lefty, but he didn't have near the cojones and toughness of Krug.
Well, and Krueger just had so many reps against the Cardinals too, being such a long-time Cub. Some people see the birds on the bats and they get a little shook by them. Krueger wasn't that guy. People are complaining that we're talking so much baseball. They're like, hey, wait a minute. Isn't this supposed to be an NBA postgame show? So here you go. Series is tied. We go to Miami and we got a series. Back to Roger Craig. Larry?
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of Damon and I when we get together. We're going to talk about basically anything. So I mean, but Roger Craig was just a genius. He was a genius, and he was positive, but he was also a tremendous manager. He had great knowledge, and he was an aggressive guy. I mean, they took chances. He put together a really good team, but to me, it was just, he was a guy with a positive, very positive outlook on life and on baseball. It was always, don't get down, don't be negative. Tomorrow's a new day. And, but he was so much more than that. There was some real baseball genius there. I mean, I watched last night the Dodgers Yankees Uncivil War documentary on ESPN with the Dodgers playing the Yankees. They played that last night. And Billy Martin was an absolute genius in the dugout, and just some of these old school managers were just so smart. And did they have computer printouts and this and that? No.
No.
It was all based in their head and all based on their instincts. And Roger Craig had great baseball instincts. I can't wait to hear Krueger jump on the radio this week, because Kruk, was bought in on Roger Craig and could tell stories for days about things that Roger did and said. And, just an incredible guy, who's, to me, you wouldn't have had the 93 Giants. You wouldn't have had Oracle Park. You wouldn't have had any of that without Roger Craig and Al Rosen, because they, it's one thing to kind of like, it's like KD joined the Warriors, but they had already won and they had already turned it around. The guys who really turned it around on the basketball front were the guys like Andre Iguodala and David Lee, and the guys who stared down all the negativity, Don Nelson, Larry Riley, stared down all that negativity and all that losing and just said, no longer. We're gonna change the course of the thing. Like KD was awesome, but he didn't change anything. He saw the party was going on and he joined it. And I the same thing I can say about the Giants owners. I mean, they get hailed as, oh my God, they saved the Giants. No, they didn't save the Giants. The two guys who saved the Giants were Al Rosen and Roger Craig, and they were hired by Bob Lurie.
Right. They made the city care again. They made the city care about that.
And they changed the negative from a negative to a positive. And they just said, you know what? No more negativity here. And they changed the culture. And then Roger Craig drafted Matt Williams and Will Clark. And let's be honest. I mean, you can be positive all you want. You got to have players, right?
Sure.
And suddenly you looked up and you're like, wow, Matt Williams, Royce Clayton, Robbie Thompson, Will Clark. That was a big part of the turnaround.
One of the things that just breaks my heart about the situation the Oakland A's and A's fans find themselves in, because could you imagine, first of all, could you imagine if John Fisher finally read the tea leaves, realized okay, I'm the most hated guy in baseball. Nobody likes me. I mean, he clearly doesn't even care. He doesn't show up to get booed. He doesn't show up to take a bow. He's an absent owner. He doesn't care. He doesn't grant interviews. It's like he's not even there. But can you even imagine the level of excitement that would instantly come to Oakland if all of a sudden John Fisher was selling? Did you see that these fans are basically planning a giveaway? They are planning on giving away 25,000 plus shirts or whatever to a reverse boycott, which I guess that they have scheduled coming up. A lot of fans are going to come to a pre-agreed upon date of A's baseball, and everyone there is going to be wearing a green T-shirt it's got the word "sell" on it, which I love. It'll be great. It'll be a great story. John Fisher won't give a crap. I mean, he won't.
Well, you know what? How about this? This is a little bit of, we're now going in different directions here, but I will say this. I think it is time for pro sports to take a real hard look and see the value of themselves and not be so beholden to the current owners. And I know you can't force people to divest themselves of assets, but man, you can sure, make it perfectly clear. Is the NBA in a better net situation not having a franchise in Seattle, but having one in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma? I would say no. And is MLB going to be in a better situation having a franchise in Las Vegas than a second franchise in the Bay Area? I realize baseball's exasperated with the Oakland leadership, and Oakland seems like the can't-do city right now when it comes to a stadium. But, a lot of these things can be reversed with ownership decisions. And I just think it's unfathomable that MLB would allow John Fisher to literally suck off the general fund for decades and give himself a nice little profit every year while holding the market hostage. And now they're going to abandon the fifth or sixth largest market in the country for Las Vegas.
Well, and
in the
you got the
summertime.
advantage. You got the advantage of being the last team standing. And here's the deal: if all he asked Oakland for, what he's asking Las Vegas for, is a stadium. Oakland, he asked for the largest construction project in the history of the state of California. You know, a couple $2 billion for a stadium is part and parcel of how it's done. That's business everywhere. He wanted $12 billion to build Abu Dhabi, a glass city around a baseball stadium. I mean, it was a poison pill ask from the get-go. He knew it was a non-starter, and that's why he put it on the table. I think this guy's been wanting just out to, and here's the thing. He's so not broke now. He's rich guy level broke, but Gap has taken it in the shorts, Banana Republic, like his
but he's a billionaire. I mean, he's one of the rich,
used to be.
But he's still one of the richest owners in if you lined up every single owner in the 4 major sports and put them in the line of richest at the front and poorest at the back, he's like
right in front.
He's right there up front, man.
No, but here's the thing. So watch, he's going to figure out a way to con Las Vegas into doing this, right? They're going to do it. He's going to get there. He's going to have this now more valuable than it was before asset, and then he's going to sell. I mean, there's no pride in ownership. He couldn't give a shit about baseball. He couldn't care about the Oakland A's. That much is proof positive true every single time you look at that product. And you could say, well, you know, Damon, he's really not responsible for what's going on at the Coliseum because that's the city and county of Oakland, Alameda, blah, 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 blah. John Fisher could buy 15 gallons of paint. You know what I mean? Like people who are real leaders, they don't wait for permission to improve things. They could have just done it. And the absentee level of all of it is just, it's a crime.
Oh, there's several. I mean, this thing is, there's so many more details to this thing that need to be fleshed out. I mean, for example, why are the San Francisco Giants, who were poor and now built their own stadium, paid off the mortgage, and now are as well positioned due to their stadium as almost any team in the big leagues? The Giants have revenue that's the envy of almost every team in baseball. That's not the Yankees, the Red Sox, or the Dodgers. I mean, they have huge amounts of revenue. Why are they allowed to have San Jose, which was given to them by Wally Haas, and not why wouldn't MLB force the Giants to relinquish the South Bay? We're talking about 55 miles away from your stadium, and you have a stadium, and in the best interest of baseball, the A's could have been in San Jose, and the Bay Area would have 2 teams, and they would be separated by 50 miles, and both teams could be supported handsomely. But the Giants have convinced everybody that their loan was based on, I don't care what their loan was based on. Their loan is paid off. It's like once their loan was paid off, that argument of, well, we put up San Jose and our rights to San Jose as collateral when we took our initial loan. Great. Your loan's paid off. You no longer own San Jose. It's back to the A's. You didn't pay anything for it. You don't deserve anything for it. You've paid off. You know, you got this loan. Yes, your premise is correct. Your business structure and the way you formed your whole franchise was built on you owning the South Bay. Great. You built a stadium. You used it as collateral, so on and so forth. Now that stadium's paid off. You've got Mission Rock money coming in hand over fist, and instead, it's like MLB sided with the Giants, and it's like what? So the grandsons and granddaughters of Giants owners need to be like ridiculously rich, and that takes precedent over the Bay Area having 2 teams when this is clearly a 2-team market. We've seen 2 teams in the World Series in the same year. 2 teams can be supported, especially if one's in San Jose. It would be almost a different fan base. It's like, no, the Giants are selfish at this point. They're like, oh, we want, the golden rule. Those who have all the gold rule. We have all the gold. We want to rule. Right. You get the hell out of here. We don't care what's in the best interest of baseball, and we don't care what's in the best interest of the Bay Area. All we care about is our greenbacks being greater, bigger, larger. I mean, it's sickening. And it's like, let's talk about all of the different elements going on here. That to me is the one that I have the least amount of sympathy for, to be totally honest with you. But I mean, look, the A's Wally Haas handed the Giants the South Bay,
the
right?
A's made a cataclysmically stupid to their own detriment decision, and the Giants, through what you're saying doesn't even matter anymore, have built an empire that everyone now admires. Why would they give any of that advantage back to anyone? I don't think that the Giants owe anyone an apology.
I mean, have you ever heard of that thing called, I don't know, 2 letters? What is it? PR. The people that you're selling tickets to are Bay Area sports fans. By the actions that the Giants have had, that has forced the A's into a situation where there's no, they can't even move to San Jose.
Yeah, but it's not the Giants' problem. It's not the Giants'
problem. But was it the Giants' problem was it the A's problem that the Giants needed the South Bay rights when Wally Haas said, here, you can have it, because Wally Haas was a great guy. I mean, he wanted to do what was right for the region. I'd like to see the Giants do what's right for the region. I'd rather have 2 Bay Area baseball teams than one here and one in Vegas.
So I would certainly want that too. I mean, I want an American League team. Not that there's even a difference between the American and National League anymore, which to me even kind of hurts that argument, because again, I was at the ballpark today and I'm watching the Baltimore Orioles. You know,
it's good for the Bay. Any industry of that note and that magnitude is good for restaurants, taxi cabs, hotels. I mean, there's an infrastructure.
They don't give a shit about that, Larry. They don't. They just don't.
But Rob Manfred and the people that run MLB should, because let's
Rob
be
Manfred
honest,
doesn't even care about his own
whatever
sport.
they build in Vegas is not going to be, the franchise will not have the same value as it would be if you gave them the rights to the South Bay and let a Joe Lacob new owner build a stadium down there. The Bay Area could have 2 baseball teams, and MLB would thrive greater and make more money than having a team in the middle of the desert.
It makes sense. But look, I mean, you could have said the same thing about the Raiders, and look at the way that their value has exploded since moving to Las Vegas. The thing
we're
is,
talking about 8 dates a year.
No, but I really, what I don't understand about Las Vegas, because the house always wins. You know, there's no stupid people in Las Vegas when it comes to making money. What I don't understand is why they would want to bring in the baseball team that metrically commands the least amount of attention locally, nationally, almost across the board, with an owner who is proven to be distrustful at best, unsavory, and just straight up liar at worst.
They don't care if Charles Manson owns the team. They want Major League sports.
They're going to get it. They're going to get it. Like the minute baseball expands again, Vegas is going to be on that list.
They've been waiting for
Vegas
a while.
Is proven. Vegas is proven.
But, I mean, they're engaged with the A's. I mean, I don't want to let's not waste this whole live stream talking about the stupid A's. The A's they have no fans, and at this point, you know, it's like,
well, they do have fans. They've just been
they're on strike,
mentally beaten down by years of abuse from the problem isn't the rights to the South Bay. The problem isn't Las Vegas. The problem is John Fisher. He's the problem. Not Wally Haas's decision, not the Giants' inability to come off.
And Rob Manfred. Don't forget. I mean, there's a whole MLB, you know, a hierarchy that's allowing John Fisher to do every move that he's doing. What I
think sucks about this whole thing, and this is where we're changing subjects, was I brought my 3-year-old son to a baseball game today. At the game with my 3-year-old son, I got to be honest, there's no way I actually got to watch 2.5 innings of baseball. It was about his day, his enjoyment, walking around the park, going up to the Coke bottle slide, and then, you know, him doing the risk reward calculations on that and saying, nah, not yet. It's a big slide for me. He backed away from that. But he loved running around on the cable car. He loved running around behind the scoreboard with his Dippin' Dots and a little room to move after sitting in a tight, you know, row earlier in the game. He loved the cotton candy. He loved the nice old ladies who would wave at him because he looked adorable wearing his way too big for him Gigantes giveaway jersey and his Giants hat. And it's about as enjoyable a day as I've had in my life, being at a baseball game with my son. And that has a value that you can't put a number on. And that being taken away from fathers, sons, daughters, mothers, families in Oakland is atrocious. That's where the real crime lies. And I had such a wonderful day. The Giants, by the way, were lifeless. They looked like they would rather be somewhere than the ballpark playing the game. They had nothing to them all day. Just real quick 0-2 against, every hitter before you even looked up, just quick at bats, lifeless at bats, didn't do anything all day. But what a great day I and my son had at the ballpark. It was wonderful. It truly, truly was. And that is the shame of what's going on in Oakland, that won't be there if they really do up and leave for future generations. I mean, it's just,
I know. I know. I can still remember, it's so funny. I can still remember the first, I don't know if it was my first game. It was the first game I remember, your guy's so young. Will he remember today? Maybe a little bit about it, but I think I can remember my first memory of going to a Giants game. I think it had to be, I was born in 70. I think it had to be like 76, maybe 75. And we go in, my dad comes home, and I can still remember it like it was yesterday. He's like, "Hey, I've got tickets to the Giants Phillies game tonight." And we're like, "Oh, really?" We didn't know anything about it. It was a big surprise. He's like, if we go now, we might be able to make it. And he was coming home after work. We worked downtown. We lived in the Sunset. It was probably 5:30, 6 o'clock. We all, trying to motivate a family of 6 to the ballpark. We all piled in the station wagon, went out there. We walked in. Giants had AstroTurf, and we had seats like 5 or 10 rows off the first base line. And like when you walk up to Candlestick and the old Candlestick, you walked up this hill, and then all of a sudden there was this little doorway, and then the field, and you could see, the overhang was dark, but you could see the lit up field, and it was just like,
yes.
Oh, wow. And I can remember seeing that for the first time, being like, wow.
Right. It's all through a keyhole, and then it gets bigger as you get closer to it. It's
right. Yeah. And then the noise and the vendors and the people and the cheering. And we walk down, and we get down to our seats, and we're down like right behind the first base bag. We're about 6, 7 rows, let's say, off the first base bag. And my eyes are just fixated on the field. And I can remember Bake McBride came up. And Bake McBride had a huge afro, massive afro. This is 1975 or 74. And he hits a ball in the gap. And he had long, really, really long legs and was fast. And he hits that first base bag. And this is before the ear flap helmet. It was one of those ones like you buy the ice cream in, right?
Right.
And the helmet goes flying. Everybody wore their hat under their, those days you wore your baseball hat. You put your helmet on top of your baseball hat.
Right.
The helmet goes flying. The hat goes flying. The afro is bouncing. He's hitting the bag. He goes into third. He slides in, and he's safe. And man, I swear, at that moment, I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked. I'd never seen that kind of action and that kind of excitement and athleticism and just everything. And I was just hooked. And I loved to go to the games as a kid. That was I can remember it like it was yesterday, just, being there and seeing it for the very first time in a big league game. And oh my God, the sights and the sounds of it, just unbelievable, man.
Yeah.
Great memories.
I think I was about 5, 6 years old when we went to a Yankees game at Yankee Stadium. Goose Gossage was pitching that day.
Wow.
And Reggie Jackson was in the lineup. And I remember how big that ballpark always was in my mind. And then you get in there and you're like, oh, it's actually a lot smaller than I thought it would be, because everything looks a little bit bigger on TV. But it was remarkable. And I remember coming up through the tunnel, and you just get that first whiff of peanuts and spilled beer and grass and chalk and leather, and it just, nothing smells like a baseball game. And yeah, these are very, very rich childhood memories that I have, that I wonder, like, as I sat there today, I got all misty. I'm thinking, is this what's happening to Jack today, or is he just in this for Dippin' Dots? Because I don't remember what I ate, that day. Jack was there for the snacks. There was no doubt about that today. He loved it. He loved the cotton candy. But again, he's 3. I mean, I don't know what he'll actually remember from today. He remembered a game that we went to last year, and we were lucky enough to be invited into a luxury box. And I'm like, this isn't good. My kid's going to be used to luxury boxes. He thought that you got your own room and, a cupcake whenever you went to a game. So I was like, oh no, there's not going to be any cupcakes today. I hope it doesn't flip out. It didn't happen, but it was wonderful. It was a magical day with my oldest son. And it was, I mean, what more do you want from an American life than bringing your kid to a ball game, right? I mean, that's about
it. Man. And it gets better, man. It gets better.
I know. Once we're actually talking baseball and strategy and players, I can't even.
I went last year, and I went with all 3 of my boys, and I got 21 and like 17 and 12, 13 last year, and we're sitting up there on that second level, whatever that second level is, not the high level, but that kind of the one that's like just above the stage, above the second level, and you feel like you're almost like watching it from theater seating. It's just that the club level, I guess they call it.
Yeah.
And we just sat there, and it was Giants Nationals, and it was like right around this time of year, and it was warm night, and I'm sitting there with my kids watching this game, and they're all old enough to play baseball and love baseball, and what's going on, and just you're sitting there and you're going, man, this is what life is about, man. This is what life is about. Being able to sit at a game with your boys and talk baseball and
not only was I taking like a few actual pictures, I was taking even more pictures from my mind. Like, man, you're gonna want to remember this one day. This is a moment right here.
Yeah, take pictures, and I remember all the giveaway days. Bat day. They actually gave you a bat.
Right.
Cap day, helmet day. And
by the way, the
baseball card day.
Funniest thing that Jack said all day is today was like, Latino Heritage Day. They gave away Gigantes jerseys, and they even had Erwin Higueros do the starting lineups for Rennell, and he did it all in Spanish. So I don't know exactly what day it was, Latino Heritage Day. I don't know what it was, but then, they had these Aztec dancers come out and guys playing drums, and guy was on stilts. It looked like the circus. And then they had all these women in these beautiful, ornate feather plumage, big plumes of big feathers coming off these beautiful women who were dancing and whatnot. And Jack is looking at all this and he goes, "Who's the chicken ladies?" They look like chickens to him. They have feathers. So he's like, "Who's the chicken ladies, Dad? Is chicken ladies always here?" I mean, he'd never seen chicken ladies before. "Dad, who's the chicken ladies?" is going to be my memory, I think, above anything else. Other than that, and it was Orioles 7, Giants 2, your final this afternoon.
Yeah. Oh, and it's like, and it's like, to me, when they closed down Candlestick, it was sad because that's where all my memories were.
Sure.
I used to love because we lived in the city all year long, and my grandmother lived in Visitation Valley. We'd go over to her house and be like, "Can we drive by the park on the way home?" It's right. Like,
Larry, I'm out here. I live in Westwood Park, right behind Reardon High School, basically, and the hill that I see is the hill that was, Candlestick was right up against. I mean, I could have driven to 49ers games within 8 minutes from where I live right now. And, I didn't grow up being bounced on my daddy's knee at Giants games at Candlestick. But I spent enough time at Candlestick with you in that parking lot to realize what a beautiful and special. I used to say it all the time. I said, enjoy this cockeyed masterpiece as long as you have it, because soon enough, progress will come and give you a football stadium that is, just completely unmemorable in almost every way. And sure enough, that's what I think Levi's is. I don't even want to get into that. As a baseball stadium, look, Roger Craig did have a lot of work to do turning around people's attitude, because as a baseball stadium, I know you got memories and they're thick and rich and beautiful. As a baseball stadium, that thing was a piece of shit.
Well,
I
it
mean,
was
it really was.
it was a multi-purpose stadium, and there were a lot of multi-purpose stadiums. Three Rivers, Riverfront, you name it. That was the
Right,
era of the
most stadium got it
multi-purpose.
right. They're the only ones who ever kind of got it right. But
it was the microclimate of San Francisco that it at night, you're talking about the coldest, windiest outpost in the entire city.
It'd be 41 degrees down there.
In the daytime, that was a very underrated place. I can tell you so many times I left my house in the sunset in the middle of a foggy Saturday afternoon, got on the El Taravel to go up to 19th Avenue to get on the ballpark bus. And by the time we got to Candlestick, it was beautiful sunshine. So it was a great climate for daytime baseball. It was just a lousy place to play at night.
Right. But then
it was windy and cold.
Now, though. I mean, to me, you have modern Wrigley Field. Oracle Park, it's been through so many different names. I don't refer to it as any of its corporate names. Yeah, I only refer to it as 24 Willie Mays Plaza. That's what I call it. 24 Willie Mays Plaza in 100 years from now will be Wrigley Field, will be Fenway Park. It is the most perfect kiss between what a baseball stadium used to be, needs to be, for all the modern amenities and profit centers that you have to have built into your baseball stadium to field competitive team year after year. Like, to me, it is about as perfect a piece of sports architecture that we'll probably ever see in our lifetimes. I didn't grow up a Giants fan. As a matter of fact, 89 left me so scarred. I kind of came out here sort of always a little bit hating the Giants. I rooted for the A's as my local team of choice, just being new to the area. Then, things have changed over the years. Obviously, I have a ton of admiration for the Giants. That ballpark is perfect. It's perfect.
It's funny. They started 0-6 there.
Oh, I know.
And I was there in the left field bleachers on opening day when Elster hit the 3 home runs, and we're walked out of that stadium going, "This place is a bandbox.
Joke.
Place is a joke. People are going to hit home runs every day."
100 splash hit. Took 23 years for the Giants to put 100 home runs into the Bay. I'm sure everyone thought that, oh, man, that record's going to be done in 4 or 5 years from now. They're going to be at 100. Took 23 years. The only guy who ever routinely made it look easy is the single greatest home run hitter of all time. I mean, that's it. So
there's never been a right-handed hitter who's ever hit one there.
No.
Though I think Piazza could have done it. I think Dale Murphy might have been able to do it. No, I got so many memories of Candlestick. It was incredible. When I was a little kid in the late 70s, they had a program called the Orange Crush Little Giants. And if you signed up and paid like $11, you got an Orange Crush T-shirt, like the soda. Orange Crush made it. It had said Giants on it, and you got tickets to like 7 or 8 weekend games in section 39 in the upper right field, upper reserves. And I can remember sitting there in 1979, and the Giants were playing the Pirates. And Willie Stargell hit a ball over my head into the upper reserves. And I remember it was coming to me. I could see it coming to me. I was like, "Here it comes. Oh, my God." And it went like 3 rows behind us, right? We were in the upper reserves. And I remember to this day, my brother, we joked about it for years. My brother was like, he's 5 years older. And I was 9. So he was 14. He said to me, "Don't worry, Lair, you'll get the next one that comes up here." Damon, I never saw another ball hit there the rest of my viewing time in my life before they closed that stadium. Willie Stargell hit a ball halfway up the upper reserves. It was upper box for let's say 15 rows. Then there was a walkway. Then it was red seats that went up, into the stratosphere. And those were the seats that when people were sitting in them during the 89 earthquake, they were afraid that the overhang was going to come down and crush them. I mean, this is up top. This is way up top. And I was like, wow. And Willie Stargell hit one over my head. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll see another one. Never again. Barry Bonds, Will Clark, you name it. All the great lefty. Chris Chambliss hit a ball into the upper deck once. Darryl Strawberry hit a ball that went off the upper deck facade in like right center, which was an amazing clout. You never saw anything like that before. But that Willie Stargell bomb was just absolutely amazing. And great memories. I loved Candlestick. Loved it. I was there on the final game of Niners Falcons when Navarro Bowman had the pick six and ran it back.
So was I.
And me and Tanika Smothers, after the KMBR postgame show, were taking the escalator to section E, the 2-level escalator down. And I'm helping her wheel, all the broadcast equipment back to the KMBR truck, wherever she parked it in the lot. And all of a sudden she screams, "Ah!" I'm like, what? And we look down the escalator, and running up the escalator at us as we're going down, 2 raccoons. 2 raccoons. I'm like, you know what, Tanika? I think it's safe to say this park needs to be closed. I mean, right. Once the raccoons are taking it over, and we like jumped up on the side, they ran right by us.
Once you got varmint in the stadium, you might need a new stadium. There's no doubt about that.
Mark Hope's his story time with Larry. I love it. Thank you.
I love
Mark.
Story time with Larry. Here's what I like. You and I will sit down to talk about something, and it always becomes story time.
I know.
It's
look at this one, Voltron. Larry, did your older brother beat you up sometimes? No, but my older brother used to, if you can believe it, I used to talk a lot of smack, and my older brother would save me. I'd be talking crap at the Salesian Boys Club. Somebody would want to beat me up, and my older brother would step in and not let me get my butt kicked.
Here's how I'm describing my 2 children who are, again, so young and so early in their lives. I still haven't even really met them yet. Ozzy's just starting to, his vocabulary is maybe 20 words tops at this point. He's just 1.5. But if I had to tell you, like, quickly sum up your 2 kids for me. Sure. Jack is going to be able to talk himself out of trouble his entire life. Ozzy is getting arrested. Like, there's just no doubt that's what I got. Today, Ozzy bit Jack so hard on his arm, he had straight up bite marks in his arm, and might have even had a little bit of blood on there. Like, he broke skin just a little. Like, the young one is nuts. It's going to be the young one kicking the older one's ass. And there's no doubt in my mind. Ozzy, first of all, when you name your kid Ozzy, you're asking for it, right?
Work for Canseco.
Yeah. When you name your kid, so his real name is Oscar. So, he's actually going to get hired. He's not going to sound like a roadie one day. But, Jillian and I joked around because Jack was very, very loud. And I would sit up at night and I'd be like, imagine if at some point we're like, he's the quiet one. And that's what we got. Like, our first kid is a kid. Our second kid is the devil. I could just see it. I know it. I feel it in my bones.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. They're all different. You can do the exact same parenting, but they're all a little bit different.
Yeah. I'm learning that. No doubt about it.
They all have their own personalities for sure. All right, so we've talked a little NBA Finals. We've talked a little bit about the great hum baby himself, Roger Craig. We talked a little bit about your day at Oracle Park with your son. We are an hour and 8 minutes into our live stream. Well, what else would you like to hit before we bolt?
So here's the thing. Give me a little bird's eye report. And again, how valuable can anything at OTAs be? They're not hitting. You can't evaluate anything defensively really happening. Other than nice back pedal or anything like that. But I'm going to make it down to OTAs, one of the sessions this week. I didn't make it last week, though. Your largest, strongest impression walking away from round 2 of OTAs, which you had access to last week, was?
Well, I never like to put too much credence into anything that happens in May or June. Just simply because football without intensity is not worth a whole lot.
Right.
And there's lots of intensity in camp, believe it or not. There's lots of intensity in the preseason, from what I can tell. But there's not any real intensity in OTAs. But a couple things stood out. This week we had a chance to talk to a lot of the assistant coaches. And so I had a chance to sit there and have dialogue with all these guys, and it was great. It was incredible stuff. And, Brian Greasy, when I brought up the fact that there are people saying that Brock Purdy doesn't have a good enough arm, he's like, I said, does he have requisite arm strength? He's like, of course he does. We wouldn't have drafted him if he didn't. And I'm like, well, I mean, that's not necessarily the case always, right? There's all kinds of quarterbacks that get drafted that don't necessarily make it as NFL quarterbacks. But so I asked him, I said, what do you make of the whole debate over Purdy's arm strength? And he's like, I don't understand it. I don't participate in it. And to me, it's never been a question whether or not he has good enough arm strength to make it in the NFL. So I thought that was really interesting. And I said, well, what are you looking for as far as arm strength? And he's like, more than anything, what I'm looking for is, can you deliver the ball accurately and on time within the structure of the play? And that kind of paints the picture of Brock Purdy. That's exactly what Brock Purdy does.
Steve Young always just put it real simply. And I thought, Steve is one of the smartest guys to ever play the position, who had a level of physical skill set that, there's nothing that Steve couldn't have done with his body, with his arm. He had it all. And if there was ever a guy who would have been smart enough to plant his flag in the ultimate value of physical gifts really mattering, he would have done that. But time and time again, when you hear Steve Young talk about what the 49ers need in their quarterback, it only boils down to one thing over and over again. He keeps on saying it. Do you deliver a catchable football? Now, there's a lot in that. I mean, to be a catchable football, you've obviously have gotten it out in time. You found your passing lane. You have thrown it with either the zip it needs or the arc, or put the rainbow on it for whatever it needs to be at the end of the equation, a catchable football. That's what you need to do. That's how any quarterback should be judged, not on arm strength, but do you deliver a catchable football? Now, have we seen enough from Brock Purdy to say that definitively that is what he delivers? We've seen so little that it would be silly to invest hope that went to infinity based on such a small sample size of games. But damn, Brock Purdy delivered a catchable football better than Colin Kaepernick did, better than Jimmy Garoppolo did. In the little bit that I just saw, just evaluating, is that a catchable football? Are guys extending? Are they looking for hospital balls way above their head? Are they constantly reaching behind them on crossing patterns for balls behind them? The answer was no for Brock Purdy. It was catchable all the time. And that, to me, is why this team, Kyle Shanahan specifically, I think really fell in love with him. He wants a yes chef quarterback who's going to deliver a catchable football. And I think Brock checks those two boxes. And what physicality he doesn't check, I don't know if it matters.
Well, you know what I think, I think more than anything, when the Niners were looking at upgrading from Jimmy Garoppolo, they wanted some guy, you can call a great play, and then you got a chance to make that play successful, but then one of the things that Greg Cosell used to always say is that Jimmy Garoppolo's not a great late in the down thrower. In other words, if you take away his first or second read and now he's forced to improvise, he's not great at that. But what Brock Purdy has is he's got that 1-5-4 10-yard split. So he's got that quickness to get away. And it's the same thing that Russell Wilson has.
We saw it so many times.
That quickness to get away. Also, he has big hands. We look at the wrong things when we're saying how big is a player. I mean, Draymond Green is 6'8". Andre Iguodala is 6'8". But Draymond Green plays way bigger than Andre Iguodala by all accounts. Why? Arm length. Arm length in basketball has a huge amount to do with how big you play.
Yep.
Kevin Willis was 7 feet, but he had alligator arms, the old Atlanta Hawk. He didn't play very big. He didn't block very many shots. He played smaller than his 7-foot frame. Draymond Green plays bigger. Well, the same thing can be said. Who's the biggest quarterback in the NFL? Well, by height, it's somebody else, but by hand size, it's Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson has the biggest hands of any quarterback in the NFL, 10.5-inch hands. Brock Purdy has 9.5-inch hands. Those are big. That's relatively big. That's bigger than the average quarterback. So he can control the football. He's got bigger hands than Trey Lance. Who's out, Brock's 6'1", Trey's closer to 6'4". So, I mean, Trey's 3 inches taller, but Brock's got bigger hands. So, I mean, it's just, there's some certain times you need to look at all the factors. But to me, it's just, Brock Purdy is played at such an incredible level. I mean, how many rookies play at that level? I mean, you just don't see it. And for people to trying to find fault with this guy, because they have some, they're invested in the 49ers finding out about Trey Lance. Okay. I mean, I get it. I want to find out about Trey Lance too, but don't ever overlook the person that's actually doing the job and doing it well. And don't ever forget how hard it is to win in the NFL. I mean, one thing that I saw this year that took me back to the 80s and 90s of the Niners, glory years, is the critiquing of victories. You're going good when your fan base is critiquing victories.
Right.
And that's what 49er fans did to a big extent with Brock Purdy coming down the stretch. I mean, he beats Miami. It's like, oh, yeah, but that ain't nothing. Wait until he gets Tampa. Tampa's going to have a whole week to prepare for him. Then they beat Tampa 35-7. Then it's like, well, wait until he faces a team on the road. Then he goes on the road and he beats, Seattle. Then all of a sudden it's like, well, wait until he faces a real good D-line like Washington. All right, well, wait, he hasn't proven he can come. He's been leading in all these games. Can he prove that he can come back? Now they're down 10 in the fourth against the Raiders. They win in overtime. Then it got to the first postseason game, and it's like, well, can he win a playoff game, and can he beat a team twice? Because remember, it was Seattle for the second time. Then he did that. Then it's like, well, yeah, but these teams aren't as good as Dallas. Can he beat a team as good as Dallas? Then he beats Dallas, and it was a very conservative game plan. So I mean, so now you have people who are like, well, he's got to prove that he can go to the Super Bowl. If he doesn't get knocked out against the Eagles, who knows? Maybe they win that game. So these people that are they're upping the bar on the expectations and forgetting that what he actually did. He had the highest passer rating of any quarterback in the entire league outside the numbers.
Look,
but then you're going to tell me he doesn't have a good enough arm? He's got the best passer rating in the league outside the numbers.
Most teams have a smart enough locker room to say all the right things in the moment about a new player, a fish out of water, whatever. What do you think of this? Well, he's our guy. From Terrell Owens crying, that's my quarterback, to all the accolades that you hear. Very rarely after a game finishes do you hear a player go, well, we would have won today, but our quarterback shit the bed again. No one talks like that post game. So all the messages that you get of, enthusiastic support throughout the regular season, I don't place that much value on them because everyone tries to strike the right tone. At least smart players do that. But in an off season, if there is doubt, it leaks. You hear about it. You hear the doubt start to bubble up towards the surface because now players have gotten away from their professional media moments and have talked to people who then turn around and put things either on social media or I have an exclusive with, or I've been hearing that, sources, whatever. The tone on Brock Purdy has not changed a lick. Trent Williams was behind his guy the way that all great future Hall of Fame left tackles support their quarterbacks to infinity during the regular season. But you haven't heard Trent say, yeah, I was just being nice back then. Maybe we should look more at anyone. No one has changed their tune. Not a single 49er when it comes to Brock Purdy. Not one. The kid stepped into the huddle. He whipped them all into shape day one. Like, he took things over instantly. That commanded an instant amount of respect, and then the results followed. So ultimate respect for what he did. I really hope he's in the right position to just start week one without any sort of element of, a great debut by either Darnold or Lance, which then has the world. Oh, well, do you need now Brock Purdy and blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm so sick and tired of having a weekly referendum about who the 49ers quarterback should be. It looks like Brock Purdy has done more to win the job than anyone in like the history of the franchise based on first impressions and career starting points. He literally was one selection away from not being drafted at all. And like you said, he was phenomenal. And
I'll say this. I mean, you know me, man. I'm as honest as it gets. I mean, if I'll tell you the truth. We're only talking sports, so I have no problem telling the truth about sports.
You're not lying.
I'm not lying, and I have no agenda. I mean, people are like, "Oh, you have an agenda. You predicted Brock Purdy." I also rooted openly for Trey Lance to be drafted by the Niners.
And then just because he would be traded and he wasn't, so why do you hate him, Larry?
Right. I predicted that he would be traded because it sure sounded like they were going to trade him, and I was wrong. But to me, I've never looked at it as Purdy versus Lance versus Darnold. I'm a Niner fan. I'm fine. They ran out of quarterbacks last year. I'm okay with them having lots and lots and lots of quarterbacks. And just because Brock Purdy's the guy doesn't mean that Trey Lance also can't be the guy. You know what I'm saying? Maybe he can't be the guy here if Brock Purdy's the guy here, but doesn't mean that like Brock Purdy's success has nothing to do with Trey Lance's ability to be successful. They can both be stars. I mean, it's not like it's one or the other. It doesn't have to be one or the other. But after the Miami game, I went into the locker room on that Tuesday, and I wasn't sure what to expect, right? Because Jimmy's done for the year, and Brock just looked really good, but he's a rookie, and who knows what the feeling in the room's going to be. Maybe there'll be some guys talking about the team like, we've just been bit so hard by the injury bug, and
it's already all past tense.
Yeah, kind of past tense, or even just kind of like, it's, a little feeling sorry for ourselves, or a little, man, it's going to be tough now, and who knows. And it was like nothing had happened because Brock Purdy had won over that room before that game. He had won them over in camp. He had won them over in the preseason. They believed that he could do it before he even got his opportunity to do it. And so when he got that opportunity and he succeeded, it just reinforced what they already believed about him. And when I went in there on that Tuesday, it was like, we got this, man. We can do everything that we could have done before. We can still do now. That's the level of belief they had in Brock Purdy. And I asked Willie Snead, veteran guy, super grounded. Damon, I would encourage anybody, yourself, you love talking to guys who are great interviews. Willie Snead, one of the best interviews of all time. And I asked him at the end of the year, right before the playoffs, I said, Willie, what we've seen from Brock is not normal. It is incredible. It is special. What do you see? You've been in this league a long time and you've seen a lot of quarterbacks. I go, does he remind you of anybody? Does this remind you of anything? And he's like, he starts shaking his head. He's just going like this. Yep, it does. I'm like, and I started thinking quickly, and I'm like, I kind of knew where he was going. He's like, he reminds me of Drew Brees. And this is a guy who played with Drew Brees. And this is a guy who has no benefit. There's no real benefit for him saying that versus saying nothing. I didn't say, does he remind you of Drew Brees? Come on. It was like, what do you think of him? And he's like, he reminds me of Drew Brees.
That's saying something. That's saying something.
That's a Hall of Famer right there.
Yeah. Look, I think that it's always hard to interpret a compliment from a head coach or, I think I speak a pretty decent level of Kyle Shanahan press conference to know what is filibustering, to know what is an actual thought, to know what is maybe a tip of how he really thinks about something. And I don't know if you even remember, but when we were down at OTAs 2 weeks ago, I had one of the last questions of Kyle up at the dais, and I just said, hey, look, I don't care where they were drafted, undrafted, just, you've got a bunch of new guys here. Any early impressions of standout performances you'd like to share from any of the new guys? And, he went right into I don't want to fall in love quickly. And, Kyle doesn't want to kiss on the first date. He doesn't want to get over his skis. And he's like, there are a lot of guys who I get excited about. And then day two happens and I feel differently after day two. So I just don't want to say anything. And that is true. Like, that is Kyle sharing an actual, honest, I think, how he looks and feels about things.
It's the same reason I said nothing about Brock last May after minicamp, because real football people know that minicamp is too early.
But I do remember him saying this about Brock Purdy, because all the questions all of the questions were Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance. Purdy wasn't even in the people didn't even know his name. He wasn't even in anyone's thoughts. And at one point in time, Kyle Shanahan was up there trying to tap dance around yet another press conference that was just swimming all about Lance and Jimmy and Lance and Jimmy and Lance and Jimmy. And out of nowhere, Kyle volunteers. And I've never been this excited about a third quarterback in my entire career. Like, no one even asked you about that. Why would you?
Was he talking about Darnold or was he talking about Purdy?
No, he was talking about Brock Purdy. This is in the height of the Jimmy or Trey debate.
Oh, I got you.
He has now drafted, Brock Purdy, and out of nowhere, on a day where he didn't want to talk about another minute of Jimmy versus Trey, he just volunteered. And I've never been as excited about a third quarterback in my life as I am Brock Purdy. And he just kind of left it there and hangled in the room. And everyone, I remember, like, the reaction the very next day on the radio was like, yeah, okay, whatever, Kyle, just trying to bring up another quarterback just to change the subject. And I even remember doing a segment saying, like, why would he say that? Like, who's excited about a third string quarterback when you're having a debate about two guys who could both be number one? Why would you even bring this guy into it? Well, there was something there, I think, at that moment when he said it. And, now we're look, I just hope that elbow heals and he can just pick up where he left off, man. That would be fantastic. Chemistry, a little continuity. It's like the biggest missing ingredient in the quarterback position for this franchise since Kyle took over. And he hasn't been able to solve it, correct it, not for 12 weeks in a row, not once, not yet.
The latest is on the Purdy thing, Damon, is Jess Flynn, who's a doctor, was on with Marty Morningweg, the former 49er offensive coordinator, on and this was released on the 33rd team football Twitter
33rd team.
Yeah. So, and I think maybe Warner might work for them. I'm not sure who else works for them, but Dr. Jess Flynn said she's talking about Brock Purdy, when he does come back, studies show that you should expect a similar level of play compared to before the injury, which is pretty consistent from what we saw with Clayton Thorson, who also had this injury, but threw the ball at Niner minicamp a couple weeks back and threw the ball really, really well. So, I mean, that's interesting for sure to see.
He's way ahead of schedule. I mean, he's doing things. He's doing things that we were told that he just would not be able to do in any version of OTAs. And he's out there starting to do them. So that is a good sign, man. It is a good sign. And I'm looking forward to going down to OTAs and just peeking around a little bit this year. I love being around football players and football practice. I really do.
Oh, it's awesome because these guys, they're
with each other. It's fantastic.
I mean, it's good stuff. They're good interviews. You asked me about takeaways though from minicamp, a few other takeaways. One, Drake Jackson's in great shape. He's put on 13 pounds of muscle. He's at about low 260s.
Like all in his pecs too. He's
flying. He's flying off the edge though. He hasn't lost any speed. He looks terrific. Jake Moody connected on all 4 field goals against Zane Gonzalez, who missed from 43 in the last practice. But Jake Moody's got a big, powerful leg. Sam Darnold took the first team reps in the second round of OTAs. Lance took first team reps in the first round. The other day when I was there, Darnold was 10 of 12. He had 1 drop. Lance was 6 of 12, and he had 3 drops. There was also 2 fumbles, but I think I would blame that more on Nick Zakelj than Trey Lance. They both came with Lance under center, but I think Chris Forster, the O-line coach, kind of stated afterwards that he felt it was Zakelj who was getting run at center for the first time. Ayuk told us that he's about to take off. He looks like he could be due for a big year. Jair Brown, according to Ayuk, has already taken 4 interceptions away. And this is a guy who had 10 last year for Penn State. Yeah. I think you could look for Jair Brown to maybe take Tayshaun Gibson's, starting free safety job away from him. And then Ronnie Bell, the 7th round receiver out of Michigan, did have a couple drops in this last camp, but he has looked fantastic in the OTAs and looks like he's ready to make the team, which would be very difficult to do. And then we also saw Kyle Shanahan got involved in one of the weirdest situations. There was a NFL Players Association representative, former Clemson tight end, I think Dwayne Allen, who was out there on the field and took exception to Diamador Lenore kind of horse collaring a receiver on a play. And he, grabbed him around the neck, and immediately Dwayne Allen walks out onto the field and said something. And Shanahan comes over and he just lit him up. We're going to hear more about this dialogue, I'm sure. The media is going to have to ask Kyle about this. He yelled at this Players Association rep on the field, "Get off the effing field."
Oh, yeah. You don't walk on my field. No. Yeah.
It was, but I mean, you're questioning my practice. You're questioning my tempo. You're saying we broke rules, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was, I haven't seen Kyle that mad on the field ever. I've never seen him get that fired up. So I'm interested to see that. No Bosa, no Hargrave, no Trent Williams, no Debo. Debo was there, but he didn't participate in any of the field action. He was conditioning, but no Hargrave, no Bosa. This week's mandatory. They canceled the last round of voluntary OTAs, so they sped everything up to try to give their coaches and players a little bit more time off because this is their real break. I did ask the tight end coach about how Brock Purdy really found George Kittle a ton in the second half of the year and how, it really was unbelievable. And I said, why do you think Purdy went so heavily to Kittle? And he said, hey, he was a rookie quarterback and Kittle's got a huge catch radius. And I think for any young quarterback, that's really reassuring when you have a guy out there who's got such a big catch radius and if you can just get it in the neighborhood, that this guy's going to make plays.
Well, and Kittle's such a mismatch too. I mean, he's running more open than a lot of guys usually are. So that
was revealing. That was interesting. And the other one, Johnny Holland, Damon said that he shouted out our guy, Marcelino McCrary Ball. He said Marcelino's been like a sponge. He said he's an incredibly hard worker. He's in the best shape of his life. Last year, he played mostly nickel in college, but they have him lined up as the backup to Warner at the Mike linebacker. And, they love Johnny, touted Jalen Graham and D Winters, but he loves Marcelino. And he says Marcelino's really coming on, and look for Marcelino to really, I think Marcelino's got Pro Bowl potential. I really do. And he didn't say that, but he basically said, watch out for him this summer and that he's looking good. So there were a lot of good things for sure coming out of OTAs. Most notably, I would say that Bobby Turner, who throws around compliments like manhole covers. He doesn't compliment anybody. Right. He was asked about JP Mason, and he said he's got unlimited upside. And from Bobby T to say a player's got unlimited upside, that is, that makes you pause and go, wow.
Jordan Mason.
Yeah.
All right. No, dude, this is something you and I were just chatting about, just watching. I think that the 49ers are going to have, where we know what their D line is. I think we know what their linebackers will be. We'll see if that secondary is where they're really excellent at all three levels of their defense again. The offensive line is going to have to reprove itself. Defense, or the quarterback position is going to need to prove itself. You are and Brandon Ayuk injury away from having a real problem at wide receiver. Even with a healthy Debo and company, guys got to prove themselves. I think the 49ers are going to have the deepest backfield in football. I think it could just be extraordinarily good. Their running game, if you are the kind of person who needs a quarterback to drop back and throw it 35 times, you shouldn't even bother rooting for the 49ers this year, because this is just going to be a running game that is a monster. I really believe that. And the passing game to running backs, McCaffrey specifically, is just going to be, I think, a devastating attack on the NFL this year. So that's where I think the Niners are really going to establish their identity early in the year, whether it be Purdy or Lance or Sam Darnold. This is a backfield that is just set to destroy this league. I really think so.
Yeah. Oh, they got a lot of talent. They're deep at quarterback. They're deep at running back. They're deep at wide receiver. It's funny. The offensive line is and I got into this debate with Grant Cohn the other day because he has kind of panned the offensive line. And I'm like, well, let's go left to right and talk about it. Trent Williams is the best left tackle in the game. He's a little long in the tooth, but if you still believe that he hasn't lost a lot, then he's a top tier tackle.
Right. The worst you could say is he might be a touch overrated, but he's an
or past his prime.
Right. Yeah.
But then you've got Aaron Banks and Spencer Burford at guard, and I think both those guys are. I think they're bookend guards for the next decade. The center, Jake Brendel, was a Pro Bowl alternate, and then they picked up John Feliciano, who's also can play center, and he's a proven veteran. So I like. And then you got McKivitz at right tackle. Now, I think McKivitz going from McGlinchey to McKivitz is going to be a very smooth transition. I think McKivitz is a better pass blocker. I think McGlinchey was probably a little bit better of a run blocker. But I don't think the Niners, if McGlinchey was a 6, maybe McKivitz is a 5, but it wasn't like McGlinchey was a 10 and McKivitz is a 2. I mean, they're very comparable players.
Right. At worst, if it's a lateral move, they'll be okay. If it's a lot, they're basically, there's a little to be desired over here. Still, you don't have a Pro Bowl right tackle, but not a lot of teams have 2 Pro Bowl tackles on the same offensive line. So, that is sort of a hard thing to just do anyways. If he is a lateral sort of improvement over McGlinchey, who again, I thought that Mike McGlinchey had an undue amount of criticism put on him about how bad he was based on when McGlinchey really missed a block. Oh, did he miss a block? Like, it was bad. Like his low light reel, forget about the highlight reel. His low light reel was awful.
Well, he had one problem. He had no ability to kick out against the best speed rushers this league has to offer. And he knew it, and they knew it. So what did he do? How did he compensate? Well, you can't jump off sides. So he would just lunge out to his right.
He'd lean.
And he would be off balance. And then the better defensive ends, the Micah Parsons of the world, understood, hey, you know what? He's lunging to get to the edge because he can't get there because he's not quick enough. So if you can give him a right-hand club to his left shoulder, he's lunging so much that he will literally go flying. And Parsons did it to him, and a couple other guys did as well. And we got highlights of McGlinchey almost parallel with the ground, just going flying off the picture. So those things circulated, and it was easy to go, look at that, look at that.
The low light reel was atrocious, but he wasn't bad. I mean, he wasn't a bad football player on the surface of I've seen bad football players.
No, he's just not worth that money.
Right. No,
and they were smart to save that money.
This purpose, I think they drafted him right. I think they got a lot out of him. The guy was a starting right tackle since the day he was drafted in this league, and will be a starting right tackle until the day he decides I'm done with this league. I mean, that is a really good career, should you be lucky enough to have it in the NFL. So he became very much a cause celeb. He became low-hanging fruit for people to pick on. And then again, would have that one slow-mo replay that afternoon on Fox that just made you go, Jesus, oh man. And
you can't draft a right tackle in the top 10. You just can't. He was overdrafted. He was a solid football player, but he was overdrafted. And he, he's solid. He's just not worth. He wasn't worth the 9th pick in the draft, and he wasn't nearly worth what Denver paid for him. But they're going to find out that he's not. In Denver right now, they're advertising McGlinchey like they've got that position locked up for the next 10 years.
Yeah, it's not that either.
It's not.
He's not nearly as good as you wanted him to be. He's not nearly as bad as you thought he was. That's right. Mike McGlinchey. You can put it on his tombstone. Wasn't as good as you wanted him to be. Wasn't as bad as you thought he was. Here lies Mike McGlinchey.
Here lies Mike. My son has jumped into the chat and typing for the Krueger show. He says he linked Damon's channel in the description. Check it out if you haven't yet.
Thank you.
And also, as you see in the bottom of the thing, we threw the banner on. Subscribe to Damon Bruce Plus on YouTube. So you got that streaming on the bottom. But also, as my son just said, Damon's channel is in the description, and you can link to it in the description. And we want all of you guys to link to it and sign up and become a subscriber of the Damon Bruce Plus on YouTube. And
I'd
we also
certainly appreciate it. It would mean an awful lot. Larry, we share an awful lot of the similar listeners throughout our radio careers. So if anyone who is in that Krueger army isn't on board, Larry's going to be doing stuff over on my channel too, and you're not going to want to miss any of Larry. So that's why we're doing the home and home. So someday he's going to be on my channel, and you're going to want to watch him when he is, and hopefully you'll want to watch me on times he isn't. So please do indeed subscribe. We're growing quickly. I mean, we've been doing it for 2 months, Larry, and we're at over 5,600 subscribers already. The podcast is doing wonderfully well and continuing to climb up rankings and relevancy, and we really appreciate that. And a new sponsor was added last week officially. We have Ike's, my cardboard cutout of Ike right here. Ike as the official sandwich. We got Blackened, the official whiskey of the Damon Brew Show, and we now got a burger, Uncle Boy's Burger, a wonderful locally owned one restaurant in the inner Richmond on Balboa and 4th, and it is just a fantastic, well-priced cheeseburger in a world of overpriced cheeseburgers. It's at the perfect price point. It is delicious. It is fantastic. And
where is it? It's on Clement?
Balboa and 4th.
Oh, Balboa and 4th.
Balboa and 4th. It is right in the inner Rich. It is more of a to-go place than it is a restaurant. So pick up your burger on the way home or down to the office. If you're driving past, you will not regret stopping at Uncle Boy's for a burger. So, Larry, thank you. All that you've done for me to help me grow this. And all I'm telling you is we're trying to get a little bit better week to week. Like we improved our camera after the first month.
Nice.
Then we've improved some lighting around here.
Got a nice new microphone.
And a fancy new microphone. And Larry, I'm going to break a little news. There's going to be a lot of fun to be had tomorrow at 11 a.m. That's when I go live, Monday through Friday. I'm live at 11 a.m. on the Plus. And I'm just telling you right now, Larry, we got a few new bells and whistles. Things are going to be happening.
The Roadcaster.
Somebody's got sound effects. So we're really excited about all that we've done and all that we're going to do. And I like I said, I can't wait to see where you and I are together in a year from now. Oh my God. I can't wait.
Seriously. Mark Hope throws a super. He says, shout out Damon's new sponsor, Uncle Boys. We don't know them personally, but we ordered from their downtown pop-up last year. Delicious.
They're great burgers. Go get yourself an Uncle Boy burger and tell him Damon sent you. Larry, as always, man, it's so easy and fun to talk sports with you. We will do more of it. We need to figure out what our weeks look like. We're going to have, a couple NBA Finals games thrown at us this week, some interesting baseball thrown at us, an OTA. Maybe you and I are down there together and we do something live together from just down in Santa Clara. But as always, brother, it's a pleasure, and it's like you're one of my favorite guys to hit the ball around with. Always have been, always will be.
Appreciate it, bro. And we'll talk soon. Have a great Sunday night, and we'll talk about when we do the home and home again. Here, we'll get that. We'll get a schedule out this week.
Awesome. All right, pal.
There you go. Have a good one. The great Damon Bruce stopping by. All right. We got this one from on Rob C. It says Heat in 7. Wow. Heat in 7. We got 7 out of this. 7. Ray Lord 84 says, I love you guys. 10 Devils 33 says entertainment at its best. Yes. Let's see what else. Let me hit a couple of these in the starred chats. Got some pretty good ones here. We got this one from Mark Hope. Damon and Larry go together as good as pig in a pickle and blackened whiskey. Look at that. Eddie says, Larry, if you could keep only one of your favorite teams in the Bay, which would it be? Well, you know what? I've just become so Niner-centric. I guess I'd have to go Niners. But I love them all, I'm a Giants fan in Giants season. I'm a Niner fan in Niner season. I'm a Warrior fan in Warrior season. I'm a Sharks fan in Sharks season. Sharks would be number 4 for sure. But I would say it goes Niners 1, Giants 2, Warriors 3, Sharks 4. Trent Balky. Hey, doing Trent? Does Larry Bear still make the final call for the Giants, Lowry? Trent, I'm glad you asked. I would say no. I would say that's probably Charles Johnson's kid, Greg, and maybe Rob Dean. But Larry's got a big say for sure in the day-to-day operation. But I don't think he's ever had the final word. He has final word on certain things, I'm sure, but I know he's involved in their media, but I don't know exactly to what degree as far as how it's structured and who has the final say. Mark Hope says, wait, Larry, I heard Kipe was retiring from Rich Lieberman. Then Krug said they're staying. Any info? I mean, first of all, don't read Rich Lieberman. I mean, I can't some people I can't say enough nice things about. I can't say enough not nice things about Rich Lieberman. I mean, I seriously couldn't, and I won't do it on this live stream. But if you see me out in public and you're like, what were you referring to? I will gladly tell you everything I know about Rich, and none of it's good. So, I think the guy is a joke, total joke. But I don't understand the off the charts, Copeland and others go, he said Kipe's retiring. Kipe's not retiring. Yeah, so what? So what? Okay, straighten that out. Kipe's not retiring. But I mean, Rich has said that's about number 9,000 on the list of idiot comments that Rich or his commenters have made. At the end of the day, who cares? That didn't hurt anybody. That's not hurting anybody. So we got it wrong. And Krug got pissed. But I mean, acting like that is like the world's worst thing, that he said some guy's retiring that's not retiring. Okay. I mean, Rich has no sources, but shame on you for believing that he did. But I mean, Rich has said tons of ridiculous things about all kinds of good people that go way, way beyond, some guy's retiring when he's not. But just as I was saying, just don't read him. I don't read him. If I see he's calling me, I make sure I don't answer. The guy's a joke, and his blog's a joke, and he's sick, a sick individual. I'll just leave it at that. Trent Balky says, did Bochy get pushed out by Farhan, Larry? What a joke. I think there's no doubt. There's no doubt that I don't know by Farhan, but he might get pushed out by Larry and the Giants owners. There's no doubt. They pushed him out. They can do it. They can say what they want. Same with Sabes. They pushed out Sabes too. There's no doubt. If these guys weren't pushed out, they'd still be there in some honorary capacity or some capacity, and they're not. Sabes is with the Yankees, and Boch is with the Rangers, kicking ass and taking names. Both those guys were squeezed out. So, and there's nothing that anybody can say that will make me believe anything else. So, save it with your replies. If you're going to come back with, well, that's not what Larry Bear said. I don't care. I don't care what he said. I just told you the truth. You going to believe me? You're going to believe him. Go believe who you want. I just told you the truth. Mark Hope's story time with Larry. Love it. Brian Lester, the Heat supporting cast is the best in the NBA, hands down. So we got to all the supers, and we got Heat in 7. And then Mark says, shout out to Damon's new sponsor. But yeah, I mean, I tell you no lies on this show or any show. I mean, life is too short. I don't need to lie. I can just be honest. What else? Coming down the home stretch here. Raybird 84. I just subscribed, and me likey. It made me laugh. Mark Hope says, oh, okay. Thanks for the info regarding Rich. I'm informed now. Gotcha. Yeah. Bad dude. Dude is a total clown. He's not worth Trent Baalke's like, I saw Copeland getting pissed like he killed someone. Yeah, seriously. I mean, it's like, go look. There's like 20,000 other things Rich has said about all kinds of people that are just wrong, sexist, terrible stuff. And also, I believe he writes the comments. And he had a comment in one of his things about one of my children. I mean, think about that for a second. And if you want to see me throw hands, just talk trash about my children and let me find you on the street. I mean, seriously, if I see Rich better run. That's all I got to say. Rich, I know you can't run, but if you see me and I can identify you, start running. Start running. Third string all pro says Krueger. Nick J. That is a major L for the Farhan regime, pushing out a damn legend like Boach, and look at him now. Oh, I know. It's just so bad. So bad. Alan Wiley says, Larry, when will you be breaking down the NBA draft? You know, my buddy Bill Duffy is one of the best agents in the game, and I talked to him this week about having some of his guys on the show. He's got like 5 guys that are going in the first round. I'm a huge NBA draft guy. I'll tell you, we'll talk about it right here. Warriors pick 19th. Let me tell you who I really like in this draft. Now, obviously, hold on. A video going off in the video. All right. Victor Wembanyama, you know, obviously 7'2", 7'5", whatever he is, incredible talent. And there's a bunch of guys that are interesting in this draft. The Thompson brothers, is it Awsar and Amen? They're both 6'7" swing players. Going to go in the lottery. Like both those guys a lot. I love Grady Dick from Kansas, who is an incredible shooter. What a shooter Grady Dick is. My goodness. Love Grady Dick. I think he's really a sleeper. The Duke center, Derek Lively, 7'1", 230, the freshman. You know, he's been shooting the ball well in the workouts, and he's got long arms. He can block shots. He can run the floor. I mean, this guy probably should have stayed a couple years in Tobacco Road. Instead, he jumps to the NBA draft. You probably needed more development. The NBA draft.net has the Warriors taking Lively at 19. I like that pick. I like that pick a lot. Leonard Miller is one of my favorite players in the draft. I'm not saying he's Garnett, but he's got fluidity and size like a young Garnett. He's 6'10", 210, played in the G League this year. Last year, he entered the draft and he pulled out because he just got abused in Chicago in the scrimmages. This year, he played in the G League and really developed. And you could see the development in the Chicago pre-draft scrimmages. You know, he's not Garnett, but I mean, you're talking about 6'10" player with guard skills and all kinds of fluidity. So I really like Leonard Miller's upside. I don't know what he's going to do initially. He still needs more development, but I love him. Keegan Murray's brother, Chris Murray from Iowa, is a pretty good player. I could see him being a successful NBA player, like him quite a bit. I really like the Indiana undersized 5, Trace Jackson Davis. That's Dale Davis's kid, and there's a lot to like. He's a tremendous passer. He's a tremendous rebounder, and he's a great shot blocker. And he's a second jump guy he gets off the ground. He can run up and down the floor. He's never taken a 3. So if you're looking for a perimeter shot, probably not your guy. But this guy has been shooting jumpers in the workouts for NBA teams. I'd be very, very happy if the Warriors went with him at 19. Trace Jackson Davis, really nice player. Really nice player. I like him a lot. Who else? The kid Julian Strother from Gonzaga. What a shooter he is. Tremendous shooter. He's a late first-round pick. The Santa Clara combo guard, I'm trying to get him on my channel. Brandon Podziemski, Bill Duffy's his agent. I love him. This kid shoots the heck out of it. He can shoot it from the foul line. He can shoot it from 3. He's a combo guard. He can play some point, play some 2. Really skilled, really nice player. There's a G League player named Sidi Sissoko who's doesn't have much of a shot. He's an international player, but you're talking about a crazy athlete. I mean, 6'8", 200 pounds. He's from France. He's just a great athlete, though. I mean, really great athlete. Sidi Sissoko. And now his skill development, you may have to put him in the G League for a little bit, but his skill development's really something. Who else do I like in this draft? James Naji from Nigeria, the 6'10", 200-pound center. I think he's got a lot of potential as a shot blocker, rebounder. He can really run the floor. Great athlete, 6'10", 200 pounds. Seth Lundy, the 6'6", two-guard swingman from Penn State, can flat out shoot it. Really good shooter. I mean, really good shooter. They've got him in the middle of the second round. I'll give you another sleeper. The kid who played at Marquette, Olivier Maxence Prosper. Man, he was awesome in Chicago. I mean, we're talking about 6'8", 230, super athletic, can play defense, block shots, run the floor, kind of a combo forward defensive wing. Really impressed by him. They list him in the mid-second round. One of my favorite players in the entire draft is this kid from Serbia. His name's Tristan Vukovic, and he went to Chicago. He hit his first couple threes. Then he started looking like Dirk Nowitzki. I mean, this kid, my sleeper of the entire draft. His hometown is Siena, Italy, but he's a Serbian kid. He played for Real Madrid. He's 6'11" and about 210 pounds. But, I mean, the skill on this guy is off the charts. I mean, I don't know if he's Dirk, but he looks a lot like Dirk. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's almost 7 feet and hit the purity on this guy looks like Klay Thompson at 7 feet. I mean, his shot is beautiful. That's the guy. If I'm the Warriors, if I'm at 19, now I realize in this mock draft, they have Vukovic going 46th overall. If I'm the Warriors, I'm taking him at 19. I mean, you put this guy next to Draymond Green, there's your stretch 5. Green can play the 5 or stretch 4 and let Vukovic play the 4. This guy's offensive game, there's a lot of catch and shoot 3-point guys, but what got me was the way he put it on the deck and gets to the elbow, and he's got some athleticism, and you're talking about a guy who shoots it from way up high. So he's a 6'11", 7-foot guy with just a buttery touch, and he can pound the dribble, get himself into a free spot, square the shoulders, and knock it down. I mean, there's a little KD to this guy's face-up game. I mean, I haven't seen too many guys who are 6'11", like this guy, like KD was, who can just rise up in the mid-level with a hand in his face and bury it. I mean, there's a purity to Tristan Vukovic's shot. I love that kid. I mean, that kid is special. Amani Bates, Amani Bates was a superstar high school kid, and there's a lot of people that are down on him, but you're talking about a 6'9" guy with long arms who's a shot maker who can shoot the ball from the perimeter. To me, he's still a sleeper. I mean, they have him going 52 in round 2. Amani Bates may not be a lottery pick, but he's way better than the 52nd best player. The kid from Belmont, Ben Shepherd, 6'6", two-guard from Belmont, another guy with a really, really nice shot. And he looked good in Chicago. He's mature, pretty athletic. So those are the guys that kind of stand out to me. I'm a big fan of Vukovic. Love him. If I was drafting, there's no way I'm not getting Vukovic. I'm getting Vukovic somehow. Oh, the other guy I really like, he's tough as hell, Amari Bailey, the combo guard for UCLA. He's 6'5", but if you watch the Bruins at the end of the year, this guy hit big shot after big shot. They lost to Gonzaga on the last-second miracle shot, but if you remember, Bailey hit the big shot before that shot that would have given the Bruins the victory. And he's 6'5". He can score. He can pass. I really love him. So, and then Jordan Hawkins is just so pure as a shooter from UConn. He's probably going to go in the teens, but just a great shooter. I mean, tremendous shooter. But yeah, Vukovic is my favorite guy. Tristan Vukovic from Serbia by way of Real Madrid, by way of Italy. So there you go. I've now given you, Alan Wiley, a full breakdown of the NBA draft. A Waveware says Larry is an informed hitman. Yeah, seriously. When I start talking in that depth about NBA draft second rounders, I need to spend more time with my family. I mean, that just proves it right there. If you ever wondered, does Krug not spend enough time with his kids? I just talked Tristan Vukovic with passion. Yes, I probably need to spend more time with my family. Haruku Itoki says, damn, your kid? What the fuck, Krug? That's messed up. Oh, I know. And not only that, he was wrong. I mean, I don't even want to get into it. But I mean, basically, he was trying to say that my kid was a bench warmer on the team, and my kid was not a bench warmer on the team. And it's who says that about a kid? And who makes somebody who's a private person, a public person, in some comment? Nobody knows. My kid now is on Twitter, and now he's helping me with my channel, and now you could say he's somewhat public. He's becoming more of a public figure because he's getting involved in YouTube and this and that. But come on, man. Do not go after my kid unless you want to go down. Walter Washington says, yeah, Larry, I really like your views of Bay Area, of the Bay Areas, the two major league teams. Way to go, Larry. Appreciate you, Walter. Nick J says Leonard Miller was highly touted 2 years ago. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, Leonard Miller, if you just watch the Leonard Miller highlight reel, he's got handle. We're talking about a 6'10" guy with 2-guard handle. He looks like a 2-guard when he moves with the ball in his hands, but he's 6'10", I mean, and with hops. So Leonard Miller, yeah. And he's not, I mean, I don't know where you play him. He might have to spend some time in the G League to develop, but I would take my time. I would pick that guy and develop him. He has got huge upside. MF says, love when Larry says, we really like Gerald Hodges in his Trent Baalke voice. That was me and John Lund at training camp a couple years ago. I'm like, what's going on with your linebackers? Don't you think you need some linebackers? You seem pretty thin at linebacker, Trent. Larry, we really like Gerald Hodges. By the end of that regular season, the Niners had given up 7 straight 100-yard days to running backs, and they were a bunch of nobodies. Jacquizz Rodgers busted him for 100. Bilal Powell busted him for 100. Reuben Drones busted him for 100. I mean, it was like they couldn't stop anybody. Oh, man. We got this one from Big Money Music. Sonoga, the center from UConn. Do you think a big man like him can thrive in today's NBA? I don't know. I mean, there's also Oscar Tshiebwe, from Kentucky. I think you got to be able to do something offensively. You gotta have a little bit more offensive game. I mean, I like Tshiebwe. I like Sonoga. I wouldn't mind either of those guys on my team, but I wouldn't invest in picking them. To me, you got to have some skill. Trock says, Larry, any power forwards for the Kings? Let's see where the Kings pick here. Where do the Kings pick? Kings are at 25. Yeah, I mean, probably Trace Jackson Davis, the kid that's Dale Davis's son. I could see that being their pick. That would be an interesting one. As far as power forwards, maybe the Marquette kid, Olivier Maxence Prosper, he'll be there on the board at the end of maybe Tristan Vukovic, to be honest. But don't they have Keegan, right? They got Keegan. I don't know. You're looking for somebody I think Sacramento may invest that pick in Keegan's brother. Have both of them. I think Keegan's the better of the two, but the younger brother is they're twins. They're twins. So maybe that would be a good fit too. We got this one from Data84. Larry, by the way, how has Aaron Banks looked in Niner camp? Asking as a former El Cerrito alum. Banks, I think, is looking good. He looks strong. He's healthy. He's out there. Haven't had a chance to talk to him. He's one of my favorite guys to talk to. Really smart, really interesting, really athletic. If you really want to see how athletic Aaron Banks is, type in Aaron Banks in YouTube under basketball, and you'll see his highlights from El Cerrito when he played basketball. Guy had some game, and there's a bucket in the locker room, and sometimes Banks will take jumpers, and it's like you're sitting there going, wow. Wow. This guy can play basketball. So Aaron Banks is a really good athlete. At the end of the day, he is a really, really good athlete. Isn't it funny how we need patience sometimes? People were ready to call him a bust, and he just had that red shirt first year. He was terrific this year. Aaron Banks, I'll tell you, he's going to play for the next 10 years. He is a really good offensive lineman. And what I love about Banks the most, not only is he smart and tough and this athletic, but his walk around weight, like if you catch him, walking down the street in April, his walk around weight is his playing weight. He's not one of these guys that walks around at 275 and plays at 325 and has to do all this lifting to get there. No, this guy's natural weight is 320, 330, and to me the Niners are set at guard for the next decade. Love Banks, love Burford. Both those guys are terrific guys, great interviews, smart, tough. I mean, prototypes. Really, really good. Love Banks. Nick J says, holy shit, not only can Larry tell you about the Division II right outside linebacker in the NFL draft, he's pulling Serb nationals who live in Italy now for NBA prospects. Yeah, man. I mean, seriously, I got issues. Big Money Music says Amani Bates was underwhelming after transferring. Yeah, but you know what? I mean, and there's all kinds of people that don't feel like he can play a team game. A lot of people feel like Amani Bates is a one-on-one player. But, man, there's a lot of skill there. There aren't too many guys who are 6'9", 6'10", who can, get their own shot at will. There's a lot of offensive skill there. For you NBA draft fans, about a week to 10 days ago, I did an interview on my YouTube channel with Matt Babcock, who is as dialed in as anybody. And he was in Chicago. And we went through all my favorite prospects, and he gave me insights on all of them. And I asked him at the end, give me a guy that you think's underrated, that you think, we're going to be talking about later that we're not talking about now. And he said Amani Bates. He likes Amani Bates. But that's a YouTube live stream. We talked for about an hour. That one's worth going back and listening to again, especially as the draft gets closer. Nick J says, trade down, get 2 second-round picks, take Vucevic and Bates or Miller. Mark Hope says Pete Vucevic. Yeah, no, Tristan Vucevic. I think there's some super sharp NBA general manager that was going to see him and the way he shot the ball in Chicago, and he ain't getting out of the 20s. I'm not even convinced he's going to be there at 19 for Golden State. But man, if you say Golden State, what should they do? Figure out a way to trade Poole and see if you can get a couple draft picks, and then go draft skill guys like you did with Steph, like you did with Clay, and then develop them. You add Grady Dick and Tristan Vucevic, you're adding maybe the best shooters in the entire draft. You're not going to regret that. You are absolutely not going to regret that. To me, when, go get skill, go get guys who have basketball skill. And, people worried about Steph's physicality, but they knew he had skill. Well, they're not worried about his physicality anymore. People were worried about, is Klay Thompson more than just a shooter? You know what? If you have that skill, you can potentially gain fluidity. But if you don't have the skill, it's hard to recreate that. It's hard to develop skill. Vucevic and Grady Dick have unbelievable ability to shoot the basketball. And we're talking about Grady Dick 6'8" and change. Vucevic is close to 7 feet. Ron Holder says, damn, Larry, between the channel and all these sports, how the hell do you find time for scouting? You know what? This is what I'm interested in. I'm the guy, when this show's over, I'll probably go look at a few more NBA players. But yes, Bill Duffy's a buddy of mine. And, when I see Bill out on the baseball field or football field or wherever, because we have kids the same age, I like to be able to go up to him and talk to him about players and have him, and he knows I know. And so he'll ask me, hey, Krug, what do you think of this guy? What do you think of that guy? I like that. And I also, I got buddies who scout in basketball around the league. I've got buddies who are recruiting coordinators in college basketball. I've got Eric Musselman's a good buddy of mine. Eric's a great recruiter at Arkansas. Carl Foster is a good buddy of mine. He's ran the Oakland Soldiers AAU program for years and years. I follow basketball on every level, high school, college, pro. I talk more football and baseball, but I'm following basketball. The Car God says, Larry, there's reports from almost all Spanish sports stations, ESPN, Fox, Bien Sky, saying the Niners coaching staff that Brock Purdy will be the starter and will be ready by early to mid-August. I'm hearing a lot of the same things. We'll see. We'll see. But I'm hearing that exact same thing, that he'll be ready. So he was at the Giants game the other night. They're also reporting that Trey Lance is getting moved. I don't know anything about that. I really don't. I predicted it just because it sounded like it, but I don't know. I don't know. And I would think that if he was going to be moved, he would have been moved by now, wouldn't he? But maybe not. And you think, well, who would trade for Trey right now? The only teams I could think of might be Minnesota, Washington, and Atlanta. Atlanta's got Desmond Ridder. I mean, if I had Desmond Ridder and nothing else, I'd want Trey Lance. If I'm Washington and I got that kid out of North Carolina, I'd rather have Trey Lance. If I'm Minnesota and you could potentially take this kid away from the Niners and have a hometown kid from Marshall, Minnesota, that'd be a very popular move in state there, very popular move with Vikings fans. All I got to say is this. If the Niners do trade Trey Lance, they better get something. Because to me, there is a chance they could look bad on the back end. And that's why I wouldn't trade him for nothing. But if I could get something, I would consider it. Walter Washington. Hey, Larry, what year did you start as a Bay Area sports analyst, Bay Area fan since 1974? Well, I was going to Sac State until 1993. So I went to Sac State 89 to 93. Then I scouted in the Canadian League, 94. Then in 95, 96, 97, I scouted with the Cardinals. Then in 97, I came to KNBR. And I've been on, I started at Sports Byline USA, and then I was on KNBR 97 through 05. Then I was on Sirius Satellite, KGO, then Sirius Satellite. And then came back to KNBR in 2011, stayed there till 2022. And now I've got my own YouTube channel. And I'll be filling in Friday, by the way, on 95.7 The Game. So catch me with Dibs come Friday, maybe Thursday too, but definitely Friday, sitting in for Willard. Mark Hope says Trent Baalke really liked Marcus Lattimore too. God, that was a terrible pick. Anybody who saw, Marcus Lattimore's injury I have no idea what Trent Baalke was thinking drafting him. I mean, it was like Marcus Lattimore got run over by a bus. I mean, there was no chance he was going to be an NFL running back after that injury. But Trent Baalke used a 4th round pick on him. I mean, that was ridiculous. Car God says, Larry, have you got your apologies yet? From Rich, you mean? Oh, I ain't never getting one from Rich, and I don't want one. Trent Baalke says, Farhan saying he's going to be a buyer at the trade deadline is a joke. He talked Soto last year and didn't come close. Then this offseason came and they whiffed. I would say there's no doubt they're going to be a buyer because I think Farhan needs to make the playoffs. I mean, the attendance has fallen apart. Every time I tune into the game, it's nothing but empty seats unless it's just a perfect Saturday or Sunday afternoon where there's a lot of where there's a lot of tickets that were sold early on. The Giants, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what happened to their fans, but they're like, there's nobody going. And they're playing well. They got a lot of young kids. They got a good matchup, and they were still Friday night looked super empty. Mark Hope says Dale Davis's kid. Wow, how good were Antonio and Dale on the Pacers front line? Oh, I know. And Antonio Davis is a Bay Area kid, Bay Area guy. Dale Davis and Antonio Davis, the Davis brothers. Bomber T says, I can't believe Debo didn't show up to camp after getting all that cake. Dude handled it like a child. No, he did show up, and he was working out. He just didn't run with the ones. He wasn't out there in the team portion. Once again, do not judge these guys based on whether they go to voluntary workouts. Voluntary workouts are voluntary workouts. And, here's the other thing, too. You'd never know what the score actually is. The Niners have a ton of young receivers. I would not put it past, the 49ers or Kyle Shanahan to just say to Debo and Ayuk, hey, guys, early in these OTAs, if you want to sit one out, we got a lot of receivers we're trying to take a look at, to me, it means less than nothing. Now, if it would be good for Trey and good for Sam to throw to the ones for sure. But as far as Debo and Ayuk, those guys are proven. I don't want those guys getting hurt in May. So I got no problem with them sitting it out. Now, this week's different. This is the mandatory, and training camp's different. Obviously, you want them out there for training camp. There's plenty of time. The offseason's about taking inventory on your offseason roster and figuring out, who's going to camp with you and getting your guys ready with just the basics. And the Niners are doing exactly that. I got no problem with any of their guys sitting it out because none of the guys who need to be there are not there. The only guys who are sitting it out are the guys that really maybe should be sitting it out, or at least could be sitting it out, and it's no big deal. A Data 84 says Larry knows sports like Pasquale knows sausage. Oh, that's awesome. Trent Balky. Is Matt Barrows married? That's what G-Rad always used to ask him. Matty, are you married? It's like, Gary told you last time he wasn't married. Mark Hope says, Grady Dick, I'm drafting him so I can sell his jersey. Ha. Great player, though, man. Great player. Nick J. Larry, can they trade Poole for only draft picks, or do they have to take back salary? They could trade him for draft picks if they traded him to a team that had cap room. Utah would be interesting. I saw Utah wants a guard that can take guys off the dribble. Maybe Utah's got 3 1s. I think they picked 9, 16, and 28, something like that. I'd take 9, 16, and 28 and Kelly Olynyk or something like that, or some combination of salary and those picks. And then I'd turn around. I'd take Grady Dick at 9. I would take that Tristan Vukovic at 16. Take a flyer on some super upside player at the end of the first round. Don't be afraid to go young. I mean, if the Warriors are afraid to go young, that'll be a mistake. You got here by going young. Do not trade for LeBron. Do not drive your franchise off a cliff. You got here by drafting your way to get here, and by targeting skilled players in the draft and drafting the right guys. Do it again. Trent Balky, Larry, is Rob Rang coming on? Rob Rang's scouting now in the Canadian League, and they're very sensitive about him doing media. So sadly, Rob Rang will talk ball with me privately, but on YouTube, it's probably not going to happen, at least not for the foreseeable future. J49, Larry never stops. The fuel always burns. MF says Sam Darnold throws a good ball. Sam Darnold does throw a good ball. Nick J says the Raiders would take Lance. Jimmy G is not the guy. I'm not giving him to the Raiders. If the Raiders want him, I want Michael Mayer. If you don't want to throw Michael Mayer, you can't have Trey Lance. I'm not giving the Raiders Trey Lance. FYI, Larry was fire on KMBR 97. I was there for all of it. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. We got this one from Nick J. Why didn't you stick with scouting? 19-hour days. 19-hour days? Question mark. Yeah, I loved it. I will say this. I love the scouting, looking at the players. The lifestyle is tough. It's tough, man. It's really tough. I'm very social. I don't know if I like that level of isolation. I don't know if I want to be on the road 30 weeks a year by myself. Also, I get great respect for the scouts. You got to be right. Like 95% of the time, you better be right. It's a lot of pressure. So to me, it was about lifestyle, though. I mean, I love what I do, but what I do is not who I am. You know what I'm saying? It's like I love doing radio, but radio didn't define me. I love scouting, but it didn't define me. I'm more defined by the family that I created. My wife, my children, that means the most to me. I came from a family that had 4 kids. I knew at a young age I wanted to have 4 kids. And I wanted to be present. It's funny. There was a kind of a little bit of a sadness when I was talking to some of the coaches this week down in Ninerland from the standpoint of these guys invest a ton of time, man. I mean, I was talking to Coach Fleury, the tight end coach. He's like, yeah, I'm up at 5. I'm in here as soon as possible. I'm here late. These guys this is their month off. They're off like from as soon as this next OTAs or mini camp ends, they'll be off until training camp. And then what? Then it's 100-hour weeks and the grind is on. And your family pays a price for that. And I just never was willing to I didn't want to have my family, I mean, I don't want to attack the coaches and say that they're not smart. They're living their dream, but everybody's dream's different. My dream was there's a number of different things I could do professionally to make myself happy, but I wouldn't have been happy if I couldn't have had a wife and kids and a regular life. So, gives you a little insight into why I do what I do or why I am who I am. Trent Baalke. I saw Kelly Olynyk in public once. Nice guy. Did he have the man bun? Kelly Olynyk can shoot it. I'll say that. Car Gods, Larry, who you got tomorrow in the softball College World Series? Stanford or Oklahoma? In the softball, give me Stanford. I'll go with the Lady Cardinal. That I'll tell you that that was another thing I watched last night that you would never think that I would watch. I watched A&M beat Stanford down on the farm in the regionals because I'm an A&M fan. I didn't go to A&M. I went to Sac State, but my best buddy as a kid was a big A&M fan. And so he's like, his parents asked me that when I was like in third grade, who's your college team? My dad went to USF. So I'm like, I don't have a college team. They're like, well, you could be an A&M fan like us. And I was like, whatever age I was, 8. And I'm like, okay, I'm an A&M fan. And then I just kind of carried through with it. I've been an A&M fan ever since. In fact, I was telling Johnny Holland, who was a great linebacker at A&M in the 70s and 80s, I said, Coach Holland, man, I'm a big A&M fan. He started laughing. I said, I'm serious, man. This is a great thrill for me to talk to you. As an A&M fan, love talking ball with Johnny. Oh, yeah, I can remember. I go deep. Jackie Sherrill, Curtis Dickey. Big A&M fan. A data 84 because you're lazy, Larry. You're fucking lazy. Yes. MF says, I respect Brian Greasy. Going from the Monday Night Football booth to coaching is cool. Yeah, but see, now I talked to him a little bit about it, but, it's like I bet you his kids are at a certain point in their age where, I'll say this too. It's like once you've done it for real, there is something that's not very satisfying about theoretical, and he's done it for real. He's played in the NFL. I worked in the Canadian League. I worked with the Cardinals. When you're doing things for real, there's a thrill that you get out of it that when you're just talking, it's just all theoretical and it's not quite the same thrill. It's not quite the same situation. So I do understand the people who are like, you know what? I played like John Lynch. I played pro football. Someone's going to give me a lot of money to commentate. And I got a family that I care about and want to spend time with. Yeah, but your kids get to a certain age and now maybe they're away at college and you yearn for that for real, right? Not just being around football, but actually competing. That's what I think a lot of these guys really, they really love is the competition. And when you're in the media, it's a job and there's a nice check and it's fun, but there's no competition. And if you miss that, that can be, it's hard to replicate that. I mean, I think Bob Myers kind of stated that in his going away speech with the Warriors. He's like, I'm going to miss the competition. Yeah, because you can't replicate it. You can't just join some organization and be like, you're just not as passionate. I don't care if it's a corporate situation with a lot of pressure. It's still about making money and what's our bottom line. In sports, at the end of the day or at the end of the season, we were successful or we failed. How many of us have jobs where you don't really know? Did you succeed? Did you fail? I don't know. I think we're succeeding, but I'm not really sure. I think we might have failed. I think we could do better, but I'm not really sure. In sports, you work your ass off, and then you get a definitive, we succeeded. We won. We beat Calgary by 17 points. We beat the Niners by 2 touchdowns, or we lost. And you get that definitive win or lose thing, and it's different, and it's gratifying, and it's motivating, and it's addicting. It's a very addictive thing, the competition. Car God says, Larry, what happened with Skip and Shannon? Heard they're calling it quits. I mean, it's just, they started to argue kind of in an unprofessional way. I think it started to get personal. You know, those are difficult jobs because they don't go in there and say, hey, you know, what do you guys think about this? And, you know, it's not like one guy goes, hey, I think this. And then the other guy goes, yeah, I also agree. Well, then they cancel the show. They're like, okay, so you're on this side. He's got to be on that side. It's a debate show. And so sometimes I think they're debating stuff. I don't even know if they even agree with what they're even saying, but they can't agree because it's got to be, you know, the show. And then I think, just watching some of it, and I don't watch a lot of that, but I know Skip and I met Shannon. I just think that, you know, Skip eventually got to Shannon a little bit. Shannon, you know, probably took it more serious than it really is. And they started having communication that was cringeworthy and it was awkward. And it went from a high-powered debate show to this very personal, very antagonistic dialogue. And it's amazing. It's like you're walking this tightrope of entertainment and all of a sudden it becomes toxic. And when that happens, then it's like, uh-oh. You know, this goes from like, hey, that was a good show. You guys really went at it, to this is uncomfortable. This is bad. This is not good, you know. And I think that's where they got. And they gave Shannon a little payout to take off, and he took it. J49 says, but can you do it again next week? Larry? What? Can you do it again next week? I'm not sure what you're talking about, J49. I'm going to need more than that. We got this one, Nick J. Not sure how honest you can be on air. Is radio sports talk dead? Odyssey was delisted. AM radio is essentially gone. The future is in podcasting and YouTube. I mean, it won't be dead on Friday when I'm sitting in on 95.7 The Game, an Odyssey property. Check me out with dibs. I just think that there's just a lot. Once you had, it's, you know, think about this. It's like there was somebody who came up with Pandora, right? And they're like, oh, Pandora, it's great. You just listen to a genre of music, and then you're listening to that genre, and then your favorite songs come up. Okay. It's better than, you know, maybe the radio. But now there's Apple Music and any Spotify or whatever else you want to listen to. There's ways you can listen. You don't need to listen to a music station of a genre that you enjoy, hoping that one of your 5 favorite songs gets played. And nobody does that anymore who's a kid. They listen to music on demand and they put it in their favorite songs in their library, and they listen to their library of music. Maybe they add to that library, but some music on the radio, I think, has been dead for a while. The spoken word, on the other hand, I think is probably not dead and not going to be dead, whether it's sports talk, political talk, religious talk, whatever the talk is. I think that's going to stay. But what's really impacted sports radio, or just radio, period, is the smart dash. Now every year that goes by, 13,000 cars get turned over, or is it 13 million cars? Or is it 13% of the car base population get turned over to buy new cars? And all the new cars have smart dash. And if you get that smart dash, now this YouTube show's on equal footing with any sports radio station, or any podcast that's out there is on equal footing with a sports radio station. They're all one button away. And ultimately, are you going to listen to, you know, a podcast and maybe have 20 minutes of content all about a topic that you care a lot about? Or are you going to listen to a genre of talk, hoping that they'll talk about your favorite team and not some team you don't care about, in the midst of commercial stop sets that could go on for 10 minutes? It's just the value to the user is greater through the podcasts. I mean, I it was a real eye opener to me. You know, my father's no longer with us, and I miss him greatly. But in in his final years, my dad grew up with the AM transistor radio. I mean, he's one of the reasons I love the radio so much is my dad. And he loved the radio. And we always had a radio going anywhere. We listened to the Giants always on the radio, Niners on the radio. He got me into KMBR. I mean, he got me, not at the job there, but he got me listening to KMBR as a kid. And he was a big reason I liked radio, loved radio. He was also the reason I would refuse to leave KMBR, because I went to my dad and I told him, hey, 95.7 wants me to go there, Dad. He'd be like, so you won't be on anymore? I'm like, Dad, no, I wouldn't be on AM radio on KMBR, but I would still be on 95. So then he would say, so you're not going to be on? And I knew exactly what he meant. So I'm like, that's it. As long as he was alive, I could never leave. I could never leave KMBR because it meant so much to him to hear me on there. And so I stayed there for years and years and years, mostly because my dad only listened to KMBR. And, and I just wasn't, I didn't want to, I always wanted him to have me there if he wanted to hear me. So I stayed there forever when I had opportunities to leave. But I just think that, it was real eye opener. My mom said to me, I'm like, oh, so Dad listens to the show all the time? She's like, oh, now he listens to the podcast. I said, what? I said, he listens to the podcast? What do you mean he listens to the podcast? I'm on every day with Gary. He's not listening to us. He's like, no, he prefers to listen to the podcast. And I'm like, what does that mean? Why is he listening to the podcast? He's like, because he likes to listen to the show when he's ready to do his taxes or his bills, when he's sitting in his office and he's got his radio and he's got his computer there. And so like right then, that was the eye opener. I'm like, wow, my dad in his 80s isn't even listening to me on the live radio anymore. He's listening to me on the podcast versions of it. So we've become very much, whether you're young or old, whether you grew up on the radio or not, we've become very much a on-demand culture, right? How many times do you watch shows when they're on as opposed to DVRing them and watching them later, or, not even doing that, maybe just watching them on demand? So, and it's now on radio. So now it's like, you're going to get into your car. Are you going to flip on AM radio? Yeah, you are. But then if they're in the middle of a commercial set, you might go to a podcast, or you might go to YouTube, or you might go to an interview, or you might go, so it's like the user has a lot of options right now. And that's really what it is. But, I still love filling in on 95.7 The Game. I think, Matt Nahagian, who runs that station, is a phenomenal person, phenomenal program director, and they're kicking ass and they're taking names and they're beating KMBR in every single time slot. KMBR has not beaten 95.7 The Game at all in any time slot since I left there. How about that? KMBR is getting beat in every single time slot, significantly and by more every month. So take that information any way you want. I'm not saying it's all me. I'm not that egotistical. But it's partly me. It's partly me. There's a lot involved, but that's part of it. The Car God says, Larry, how difficult is it to start a radio station? Forget starting it. There's FCC limitations on the number of stations on the dial. There'll be no starting anything. Yeah. MF says, I listen to AM 570 in LA, KMBR, and 95.7 The Game daily. There you go. J49 says, still love the radio. Yeah, I mean, believe me, and there's some great people on the radio. There really are, especially at the game. I'm a huge fan of Guru. Love Guru. Think he's terrific. Big fan of Willard. Love Willard. And, think he's absolutely outstanding. Mark Hope says, Larry, the ultimate family man. That's why you're so respected. I don't know if I'm the ultimate family man, but I'm definitely a family man. MF says the live stream is good at KMBR now. It's better. MF says, Larry, who cares about the ratings? The program directors and the sponsors. See, that's the thing. That's where AM radio, and that's where radio's under attack. It's just that, if some percentage of the audience falls off, then the total number of people listening is not as great, and then it's really becomes, what can you sell the advertising for? And that's where the rubber meets the road. Haruku says, LOL, I used to listen to Ken Dito on KMBR. Me too. First time listening to Sports Talk. Ken Dito. Great guy. Ken Dito and my dad actually got into a brawl when they were teenagers in the North Beach playground, or maybe at Salesian Boys Club. Ken was a baseball player. My dad was a part-time boxer, and they mixed it up. But I used to listen to Ken Dito as a kid. He used to get so mad. People would call up, Ken, I've got a trade that I'd like to propose. And he'd be like, I can't stand these trades. Okay, go ahead. What do you got? I'd be like, I think the Giants ought to trade Guy Soulars, Joe Patini, and Rich Gale to the Phillies for Mike Schmidt. And Ken Dito would just lose his S. What? Why would the Phillies ever do that? It was awesome. And sometimes through the years when I'd see Ken around at stuff, I'd be like, remember Guy Soulars, Joe Patini for Mike Schmidt? He's like, do I remember it? It was nightly. Oh, yeah. Good stuff. I listened to Ken Dito. Yeah, Ken Dito. Then I listened to Ken Dito, Dave Newhouse, Ralph. It's amazing. It was a great thrill going to KMBR and working there because I grew up on Ralph. A lot of times in high school, I'm listening to Ralph. Then we did a face-off, and we became friends. And he was one of my good friends there. Love Ralph. Miss Ralph. Hey, Krug, you're so cute. Get all angry when the Giants lose. That used to just piss me off. I'm like, don't call me cute. Don't call me cute, Ralph. Krug, don't get mad at me, man. Don't get mad. Nick J, I like both stations, but 95.7 The Game has the live stream down. The hosts are into it and acknowledge the chat. KMBR's lives are very boring. Copes is the only one who acknowledges the chat. Yeah, KMBR should have gone on YouTube, 2 years ago? I told the poor program director there 2 years, maybe 3 years ago now. I'm like, dude, you guys need to get on YouTube. You guys are, you're giving away a lot of the younger part of the demographic by not being on YouTube. Yeah, we're going to get there. We're talking about it. We're meeting. We're blah, blah, blah. Great. Now you're getting beaten every time slot like 5-5 to 2-2, and now you're on there. When the carcass is dead, you're finally going, maybe we should try to compete. Why try now? Nick J says it's clear KMBR hosts don't want to be streamed live on video. Very clear. Yeah, that was what they told me at the time. Not everybody wants to do it. Not everybody wants to be on. Like, you're in charge. Whatever. Mark Hope says, I called Ken Dito when I was like 7 or 8 from Santa Rosa. I asked him about Mark Van Egan. Great Raider running back. MF says, Tolbert's pets licking him and him drinking beer on the live stream is funny. Yeah, for how long? Are you getting licked by a cat on a live stream? Oh, man. Tommy T. Remix channel. Copes and Tolbert have zero chemistry. It's hilarious. Oh, let's not. The one thing I don't want to do is I don't want to rip anybody. I mean, you got to remember this. Tommy's my friend. Adam's my friend, even though he wound up, taking my job there technically. But, as far as I'm concerned, my friendships with those guys supersedes any of our job statuses. So it really, I know people, will throw out a lot of things on hosts and feel like, oh, well, you probably don't like them and hate everybody. No, that's not the way it is. If you're my friend for life. You know what I mean? I'm a lifetime friend. So I don't, even though I know some of you maybe think, oh, I'll rip these guys and it'll make Larry happy, or I'll like to see that. It really doesn't. My friendship with T, I think goes beyond radio. I mean, he's a friend, and our families are friends, and I got great respect for him as a person. I got great respect for him as a host. I great love for him as a person. So I definitely, and same with Adam, same with several guys, 95.7 The Game. You see the way Damon and I interact because, if I'm your friend, I'm your friend. And whether you have the job or don't have the job, or I have the job or don't have the job, whether you're on top, I'm on top, someone's on top, that's all like, it's great. And I'm competitive like anybody else, but it's secondary to me. Car God says, Larry can get one get a radio channel on AM or FM and maybe live stream it on YouTube. I don't know. Sounds like a good idea. If you're on the company's YouTube channel, yeah. Otherwise, it could be a little bit of a conflict of interest for sure. And nobody's getting a radio channel, by the way. The FCC limits the number of channels, and they don't change. Mark Hope says Dave Newhouse was incredible. Dave Newhouse was too nice for sports radio. Seriously, when Ken Dito would get pissed at bad trades, Newhouse would be like, "Well, it's pretty fair. It's a pretty fair trade." I think Dave was very positive, maybe too positive. Thunderbird says, Larry, bring on Marty Lurie. I beg you. Okay. I haven't talked to Marty in a few weeks. I'll call Marty this week. We'll get him back on. Mark Hope says, FKMBR, they never take calls. What the fuck is that? Dan Coach Emilio. Look at Danny. Look at Danny in the house. He says, I listened to Ken and Dave Newhouse. How you doing, Danny? Good to see you. Thunderbird says, Larry, Ryan Terrio coming on, by the way. Oh, I love Ryan Terrio. I could do a great show with Ryan Terrio. He's just terrific. Dan Coach Amelia says, the Mount Rushmore of Barry announcers. Ooh. Bill King, Lon Simmons, wow. Bill King, Lon Simmons, Hank Greenwald. Got one more. John Miller. I don't know. I mean, how do you not have Kruk and Kipe as on there? That's tough. Dave's going to be great. Dave's great. Dave's truly tremendous. But I'll take Hank Greenwald over Dave. Just old school over new school. Remix. Copes cut Tolbert off, and he doesn't like it himself. All right. I don't know. MF says, Larry, Greg Cosell is the best guest between KMBR and 95.7. I do like Greg. Greg is great. Greg's laugh is awesome, but his content's good too. Thunderbird says, Larry, you getting Greg Cosell? Or he says Craig Cosell, but I know you meant Greg. I don't know. I'd love to. I'd love to have him. Eddie K says, don't get why compare KMBR 95.7 shows or hosts. It's exactly the same. You're all reaching on favoring one over the other. All right. There's somebody who thinks it's the same. Mark Hope's Mount Rushmore is Bill King, Lon Simmons, Hank Greenwald, Joe Starkey. Okay. Thunderbird says G. Radnich. I thought you meant play-by-play guys. I mean, if we're just going sports guys, where's Wayne Walker? I mean, I think I'd have Wayne Walker on there. Adata says, I love Fitz, or I like Fitz. Kevin says Fitz is a good man. And Fitz, by the way, is unfairly ripped. People who rip Fitz, come on, man. Fitz is way, way, way better. Way better than many, many people that other people think are great. Bob is very good. Bob is very good. And I know there's people that he rubs wrong, but another guy, don't rip Fitz to me. I don't want to hear it. He's my friend. And I like him as a guy. And I like him as a broadcaster, period. I think he's really, really good. I admire him greatly. I actually, when I got going in the business, I took over for him. I mean, he was doing, 7 to 10, and I was doing post-game Giants till midnight. We shared that 7 to midnight time slot. And, I consider Bob a close personal friend. Larry, who's your KMBR Mount Rushmore? Ooh. It's got to be Frank and Mike. Frank Dill, and Mike Cleary have to be on there. Then I'll put G-Rad, Ralph, and T. That's the Mount Rushmore. Ralph and Tom, Ratty. How do you not go Pete Franklin? But Pete Franklin was known in Cleveland, New York. But yeah, it's got to be Ratty. It's got to be Ralph. It's got to be Ralph and Tom, and it's got to be Frank and Mike. Frank and Mike. I mean, it wasn't sports, but they were awesome. Frank Dill was the best, the very, very best, very best. He was the morning guy on KMBR for years and years. Danny says, Bay Area Mount Rushmore of announcers: Lon Simmons, Bill King, Dwayne Kuiper, Joe Starkey, honorable mention, Bob Fitz, Greg Papa, John Miller, Hank Greenwald. All right. Not going to fight you on that. Papa's really damn good too. And I just saw him the other day. I just think when I think Mount Rushmore, I'm always thinking of older guys. I think of Greg as younger. I think of Fitz as younger. So I went old school. I went Bill King. I mean, seriously, you gotta have Lon. It's got to be Bill. So that you're halfway home. Then it's like you want to fill in after that, fill in, but definitely got to have Bill. Got to have Lon. Kevin says Pete Franklin was fun. Oh, Pete Franklin was the best. One of the very first shows I did on KMBR, Pete Franklin came in and was like, "You sounding great, kid. You sounding great." I'm like, I said, Pete, I've been listening to you for years. Just the fact that you came in here and said that made my day. He's like, "You sounded great." I don't know if he was trying to build me up, or if I actually was. I don't know, but I took it as a compliment. Who is Wayne Walker? Oh my God, T-Bird. Google him. Former Detroit Lions linebacker, did Niners play-by-play. He was basically the Channel 5 TV guy for years and years and years. Yeah, Wayne Walker. In fact, I remember it used to bother G-Rad a little bit because every time my dad would come up, or anytime my dad would meet Gary at every, he'd be like, I was a huge Wayne Walker fan. It's like, Gary was very competitive. But Wayne Walker was awesome. Wayne Walker was just very cool. Very, very, very cool. Mark Willard's not on your KMBR Mount Rushmore, Larry? No, you got to be there longer. He wasn't there long enough to be on the KMBR Mount Rushmore. Though I do think Mark's very talented. MF says, Larry, Tim Ryan should be on the Mount Rushmore soon. T-Rock? I love Tim Ryan. Yeah, Tim Ryan's terrific. What I love about Tim Ryan is just the energy, and I love talking ball. Now, that's the other thing, too. It's like Tim Ryan is a real football guy. Tim Ryan and I, after Brock Purdy's preseason game, where he ran the play clock down to 1 at the end of every play. Was it Minnesota? I forget which game it was. The next time we talked, both of us wanted to talk about that, about how Purdy had run the play clock down to 1. And you don't see that from rookie quarterbacks in the preseason. That right there was the indication that this kid's really on a different level. This kid's really more, he's a rookie, but he's very mentally mature. Is that you never see that. There's so much going on for a rookie quarterback in his first go round in the preseason. You never see him do that, like run the clock down to 1 and snap the ball. Heck, Jimmy Barrett sometimes didn't do it in regular season games after he'd been in the league for years. The fact that Tim and I both recognize that as very, very unique and very, very special. That right there, that was my moment where I was like, wow, look at this kid, Purdy. Look at this. And I remember talking to Tim about it, and he's like, oh, yeah. I mean, when he started running that clock down to 1, it's like, yeah. It's like he showed a veteran-like player in a rookie's body in the preseason with no experience. Alea says, Tim Ryan's passion is unmatched. The dude just straight up loves football. I love the guy in Baltimore who's outside the booth and he's like, shut the hell up. He's like talking trash to Tim. Who talks trash to Tim Ryan, by the way? Good way to wind up in the cheap seats. But I love Tim on the live mic. Hey, shut up. That was one of the greatest moments in 49er broadcast history. Thunderbird says, Larry is all Ninered out with that background. Yep. Got a lot of my flags. This one right here, Nitty Gritty Niners, is from Breezy. I got a new flag coming too. Somebody sending me one from one of the other Niner podcasts. Niner Jess, I believe, is sending me one. I sent her a Krug Show t-shirt. Kevin says, I remember Peter B. Collins on Cambier. Wow, that's going back. That is going way back. Dan Coach Emilio. Bill King and Wayne Walker, best mustaches. Gary Park had the best tan. Yeah, Gary Park had an awesome tan. Gary Park had a ridiculous tan. He was golden. He was like that guy Hamilton, George Hamilton. I mean, he's just ridiculously tan. All right, that's going to do it for us. Let's thank our sponsors. We are brought to you by Pig in a Pickle, New York Style Italian Sausage, and Telmetrics. Make sure you check out all three of our sponsors, and we'll start with Pig in a Pickle.
The Sunday dinner. That means no matter how busy you were, no matter where the hell you were, you came to dinner on a Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday dinner without sausage, it's like a church without God. You know, how can you go to church if you don't believe in God? You know, and along with the sausage also became the discussions. That was discussion night. You know, it wasn't a typical family that you sit there and you're quiet, you know, and you don't talk with a mouthful. Oh no, man. Italians talk when they're eating. Italians even talk when they're sleeping. And definitely we talk with our hands. So if we can't express it through our mouth, through our lips, we express it with our hands. So, and that's what sausage is, really. It's an expression, you know, that life is good.
All right, coming down the home stretch on the Krug Show. All right, good stuff. Thanks to Damon Bruce for stopping by. Thanks to all of you guys for hanging around. Thanks to our sponsors, New York Style Italian Sausage, Pig in a Pickle, and Telmetrics. And we are at 18,539. Trying to close in on 20,000 subs before training camp. Can we get there? My son says, absolutely. He said, Dad, not only can we get there, we will get there. And I'm like, wow, all right, 20,000 subs. So we're less than 1,500 subs away from 20,000. 20,000. If you told me that in when we started this in February or March, I guess it was March of 2022. So exactly 15 months ago, that we'd be sitting here with, almost 19,000 subs, and that we would wind up with 20,000 subs in that short amount of time. Never would have banked on that. Never would have expected that, but that's what it's been. So 18,539 total subs. If you're in the chat right now, hit like, hit subscribe. If you hit like, that just helps more people in the algorithm find us. And then if you hit subscribe, you'll just get an alert on your phone every single time that we're going to go live. And you can also be a channel member for $4.99 a month. We appreciate every one of our channel members. We give some of our channel members, or all of our channel members, exclusive content that we don't give to everybody else. So definitely like and subscribe. And if you can be a channel member, please do. But 18,539 subs at the moment. And I'm absolutely blown away by that number and by all the support that you guys have shown me on this channel. So thank you to each and every one of you for supporting this venture. Mark Hope says sausage is an expression. There you go. Trock says Sunday dinner without sausage is like church without God. Pasquale sausage may be giving out on him at dinner or after dinner. Mark Hope says, Larry, thanks for the post game on the finals. Dan's on the Mount Rushmore tip. He says Bay Area coaches Mount Rushmore: Bill Walsh, Bochy, Kerr, Madden, honorable mention, Roger Craig, R.I.P. Roger Craig, R.I.P. Don Nelson, George Seifert, Jim Harbaugh, Billy Martin. Yeah, Billy Martin. Billy Martin, what a great manager he was. And he was a Bay Area guy. We got Mark Hope says 18,539 subs. Way to go. Get that paper, Krug. Thank you, Mark. MF, heard Tim Ryan pop on with Papa and Lund a few weeks back. Great to hear. Yeah, Tim Ryan's great. All right, that does it for us. Thanks to all of you. Thanks for supporting the channel. A lot of good stuff on the channel this week. Look for it. I don't have my schedule all ironed out, but we'll be doing a lot of stuff we do. And we also got a couple surprise guests later this week that I know you guys are going to like. So definitely keep it locked on the Krug Show for all Niner, Giant, and Warrior related content. And appreciate every single one of you for supporting the channel. Remixes David, or I don't know, man. Tim Ryan gives me David Hasselhoff vibes. What? David Hasselhoff? No way. All right. Thanks to everybody. We will see you next time on the Krug Show. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, getting handled. I answer to no one.